Hey my watchers, welcome. Today we are gonna see, what if Harry Potter was cursed heir in Game of Thrones? The Dawn Age prehistory. Westeros is inhabited by non-human races. The Children of the Forest, a diminutive species of greenseers and wood dancers, and the Giants. The Children of the Forest worshipped the gods of nature and are believed to have carved the faces into the weirwood trees. c. 12,000 before Aegon's Landing. A human ethnic group, the First Men, invades Westeros across the Arm of Dorne, bearing weapons of bronze. The Children of the Forest destroy the arm with magic, creating the island chain known as the Stepstones. But the First Men are able to reinforce by ship. A fierce battle for control of Westeros begins. Eventually the Children of the Forest call down the Hammer of the Waters to shatter Westeros in two, but only succeed in flooding the Neck and transform its fields into swamps and bogs. C.10. 000 BAL signing of the pact. After years of warfare, the two sides agree to a truce, signing the pact on the Isle of Faces. The First Men take control of the open lands and the Children take control of the forested interiors. In time, the First Men adopt the worship of the old gods of the forest. The signing of the pact marked the end of the Dawn Age and the beginning of the Age of Heroes. The First Men who settle in the Iron Islands, separated from the mainland, develop their own unique culture based on seafaring and raiding. They become known as the Ironborn, and unlike their First Men cousins on the mainland, develop their own local religion worshipping a deity known as the Drowned God. The First Men who settle in the Neck branch off to form their own unique culture, known as the Crannogmen. They still worship the old gods like their neighbors, but their society has adapted to the swampy climate of their territory. The Age of Heroes, c. 8000 BL. The Long Night. A great winter that lasts a generation descends on Westeros, followed by a night that goes for years. Under the cover of darkness, the White Walkers invade Westeros from the uttermost north, causing immense suffering and destruction. In the War for the Dawn, the Children and the First Men unite to defeat the Walkers, eventually throwing them back into the north. In the Eastern tradition, they are led by a great hero of the East, a warrior named Azor Ahai wielding a sword of fire named Lightbringer, but Westerosi accounts do not mention him. A great leader named Brandon Stark raises the wall with artifice and magic to bar against the Walkers' return. He also founds the Castle of Winterfell, founds House Stark and the Night's Watch, and, according to some, is named as the first king in the north. Despite their victory, the Children of the Forest suffered heavy losses in the war and begin to disappear from Westeros. The Night Fort is the first castle built on the wall, and remains the headquarters of the Night's Watch for almost 6,000 years. 18 additional castles are later built along the wall, sometimes centuries apart. Those First Men tribes unlucky enough to be living north of the wall when it is constructed are trapped in the lands beyond. They become isolated from the developing kingdoms to the south and eventually hostile to them, despite their shared ethnic background. These tribes call themselves the Free Folk, though the kingdoms south of the wall consider them to be barbarians, and derisively call them the Wildlings. Despite their differences, the Free Folk continue to follow the same religion of the old gods, just like their cousins to the south of the wall. One of the first Lord Commanders of the Night's Watch is, according to legend, seduced by a white-skinned woman from beyond the wall. He sets himself up as king of the wall and the Night's Watch, and conducts human sacrifices. The Stark King in the north as well as the Wildling King beyond the wall, Joramun, unite to defeat him and restore the Night's Watch. Afterwards, the evil Lord Commander's name is ordered to be purged from history, so the legends remember him only as the Night's King. At some point in these centuries, according to legend, a king from the south visited the wall but gave some great offense to the Night Fort's cook. In revenge, the cook killed the king's son and served his flesh to him in a pie. The legend says that the gods cursed the cook by turning him into a giant rat who eats his own offspring, and he is remembered as the Rat Cook. Later generations would remember this legend as an infamous example of a violation of guest right, a crime which the gods cannot forgive. The Undul Invasion, c. 6000 BL. A race of men from Essos, the Undulls, cross the narrow sea in numerous ships and make landfall in the Vale of Arryn, under the banner of the Faith of the Seven. Riding horses and wielding weapons made of iron, they overrun and conquer all of Westeros south of the Neck. Their attempts to invade the north are frustrated by the north's natural defenses, namely the swamps of the Neck and the formidable fortress of Moat Cailin. So eventually they make peace with the king in the north. A shifting quilt of small kingdoms takes shape in southern Westeros. The Undulls kill the few remaining children of the forest as they encounter them, and the survivors disappear. c. 4000 BAL. By this time the Undulls make their last conquest, of the Iron Islands, which are separated from the mainland of Westeros. While ethnically similar to the first men of the mainland, the islanders had long before diverged into their own separate culture, known as the Ironborn. While Undulls did conquer the islands, they simply integrated into the local culture, even converting to the local religion of the drowned god. Thus the Ironborn of later centuries are composed of the same first men/Undul ethnic mix of most of the rest of Westeros, and they took up the language of the Undulls, but otherwise, their unique culture was not drastically affected by the Undul invasions. The rise and fall of Valyria, c. 5000 BAL. On the eastern continent of Essos, the peaceful sheep-herding folk of the peninsula of Valyria find dragons lairing in the 14 Fires, an immense chain of volcanoes extending across the neck of the peninsula. The Valyrians tame the dragons with magic and begin expanding their influence. They fight 5 great wars against the Giscari Empire before finally throwing them down in defeat, expanding the Valyrian freehold to include all of Slaver's Bay. c. 700 BAL. The Valyrian freehold begins settling the region of the modern Free Cities. Their expansion brings them into conflict with the native inhabitants of the region surrounding the River Rhoyne. Nymeria, the warrior queen of the Rhoynar, realizes that they cannot stand against dragons and they flee to Dorne, in southern Westeros. There Nymeria marries Lord Mors Martell and helps House Martell conquer the rest of Dorne, finally unifying the region as one kingdom. c. 500 BAL. A religious sect, the Moonsingers, leads refugees from the Valyrian-controlled areas of western Essos to a secretive lagoon protected by mountains and narrow access channels. Here they found the secret city of Bravos. c. 200 BAL. The Valyrians annex Dragonstone, an island in the narrow sea just off the eastern coast of Westeros. The Targaryen family takes control of the island, which is used as a trading post with the Seven Kingdoms. According to legend, Aenar Targaryen had a vision of impending catastrophe and arranged to have his family removed from the freehold. c. 100 BL. The Doom of Valyria. The 14 Fires erupt in a titanic explosion that obliterates the heartland of the Valyrian freehold. Most of the Valyrian dragons, who lair in the volcanoes when not needed, are killed outright. The city of Valyria is partially buried under vast amounts of ash. The Valyrian peninsula fractures and breaks apart. A large part of it is torn away from the mainland, low-lying areas are flooded and many offshore islands are formed. The waters around Valyria remain poisonous until the present day. c. 100 BLC. 2 AL. The Century of Blood. In the aftermath of the Doom, Valyria's outlying colony cities began breaking away and asserting their independence, becoming the 9 free cities, leading to a free-for-all between them. The following 100 years are chaotic free-for-all of almost constant warfare between them, also known as the Bleeding Years. Worse, without the Valyrian dragons to keep them in check anymore, the Dothraki mounted hordes spilled out of the central plains of Essos to sweep across most of the continent, in their first great wave of pillaging. For a time the Dothraki sacked cities at will, until their attacks were finally checked at the Battle of Qohor. Raids would continue afterwards but never on the same scale. Paralleling the free cities to the west, east of Valyria, the Giscari cities of Slaver's Bay also reasserted their independence. Towards the end of this period Volantis grew enough in strength to try to conquer and unite all of the other free cities, but Volantis was ultimately defeated. Afterwards the free cities settled into somewhat more stable political patterns, just as Aegon Targaryen was uniting the 7 kingdoms in Westeros. Westeros, the Age of 100 Kingdoms, c. 6000 to 700 BL. Over the centuries following the Undul invasion, hundreds of petty kingdoms form across Westeros, eventually aggregating into several larger powerful nations, and ultimately 7 large kingdoms. c. 4000 BL. The Undulls finally conquer the Iron Islands, much later than the mainland of Westeros due to their isolated location. However, the few Undulls who invaded the Iron Islands, such as House Hoare, essentially went native and acculturated to the distinct Ironborn culture, even abandoning the faith of the Seven to convert to worship of the drowned god. The cultural impact of the Undull invasions was therefore relatively minor in the Iron Islands. c. 2000 to 700 BAL, the final Seven Kingdoms, as they were later known, formed from previous smaller kingdoms during this time period as they absorbed their neighboring rivals. This is roughly said to have occurred anywhere from 1,000 years before the Targaryen conquest to 1,000 years before the War of the Five Kings, varying by region. The Stark kings expel pirates from the mouth of the White Knife River on the east coast, and to defend against further incursions founded the settlement that will later grow into White Harbor, the North's only major port. Another Stark king defeats the Marsh King, and marries his daughter to cement the North's annexation of the Neck. c. 4000 to 700 AL, the Ironborn enter into their first great age of expansion under House Hoare, conquering much of the western coasts of Westeros, as signified in their heraldry. Their possessions range from Bear Island in the far north to the Arbor in the far south, and many lands along the coasts in between. They penetrate as far as Raventree Hall in the northern Riverlands, but their dominion is mostly concentrated near the coasts. Over time, however, as major kingdoms centralized and grew in power on the mainland, such as the Starks of Winterfell and Gardeners of Highgarden, they gradually expelled the Ironborn, until they were pushed back to the Iron Islands themselves. c. 700 BL, the Rhoynar migrate to Dorne, after being driven from the Rhoyne River network in Essos by the Valyrians. House Martell intermarries with the Rhoynar and with their extra numbers unifies Dorne. House Manderley is exiled from the Reach but given safe haven in the north, where House Stark rewards them with rule over White Harbor. House Bolton is finally subdued by House Stark in the north. c. 400 BL, House Bolton rises again in rebellion against House Stark, but is subdued once again. Due to his actions in suppressing the Bolton rebellion, the younger son of the king in the north, Carlin Stark, is awarded lands confiscated from the north of the Bolton's former possessions, founding a cadet branch of House Stark. Over the generations, Carlshold becomes known as Carhold, and the Carlshold Starks become known as House Karstark. c. 360 BL, the Stormlands successfully invades and conquers the Riverlands, under the Storm Kings of House Durrandon. This reduces the number of nations to 7, the Kingdom of the North, the Kingdom of the Vale, the Kingdom of the Isles and Rivers, the Kingdom of the Rock, the Kingdom of the Reach, the Storm Kingdom, and the Principality of Dorne. c. 300 BAL, the newly ennobled House Frey begins construction of a massive bridge and castle complex across the Green Fork of the Trident, which when completed is known as the Twins. The Freys rapidly amass great wealth from bridge tolls and rise to become one of the major noble families of the Riverlands, though they are looked down upon by other more ancient families as upstarts. c. 200 BL, House Targaryen, one of the aristocratic families of the Valyrian freehold, settles on Dragonstone Island in Blackwater Bay to establish a Valyrian trading outpost. c. 100 BL, the Targaryens relocate their entire family and household to Dragonstone, convinced by a prophecy that the destruction of Valyria is imminent. This proves true, as the doom of Valyria follows only a few years later. The Targaryens and their vassal houses on other islands in Blackwater Bay remain uninvolved with outside affairs, slowly building up their strength. c. 60 BL, some 3 generations before Aegon's landing, the Iron Islands enter into their second great era of expansion, conquering the territory of the Riverlands from the Stormlands. Unlike their first era of expansion, which conquered coastal territories across Westeros, this push focuses on conquering specifically the Riverlands, penetrating deep inland. The Ironborn hold everything between the Blackwater to the south and the Neck to the north, and from the west coast to the east coast. The Ironborn invasion is led by King Harwin of House Hoare, and the Iron Islands continue to rule the Riverlands until the time of Harwin's grandson, Harren Hoare, also called Harren the Black. Wishing to demonstrate his wealth and power, King Harren spends years and vast resources constructing a castle far more massive and formidable than any other in all of Westeros on the north shore of God's Eye Lake. Harrenhal, a fortress almost completely impregnable to ground attack. The enslaved local Riverlanders are forced to toil on the castle's construction, to build the tool of their own domination. The Targaryen Conquest, 2BL0AL. Despite pleas to intervene in the free cities, Aegon the Conqueror, the ruler of House Targaryen, decides to invade Westeros, along with his sister wives Rhaenys and Visenya. With only a small number of soldiers, his forces make landfall at the mouth of the Blackwater Rush. On a tall hill overlooking the bay, he builds a wooden redoubt on the site of what is now the Red Keep. He then begins his military campaign using his secret weapon, the only 3 dragons known to have survived the doom. The construction of Harrenhal Castle finishes the same day that Aegon lands in Westeros. When King Harren the Black refuses to surrender, Aegon uses his dragons to overcome Harrenhal's defenses and burns Harren alive in what is later called Kingspire Tower. The remaining Ironborn flee back to the Isles and capitulate to Aegon, naming Vicon Greyjoy of Pike to rule over them. Aegon is joined by Lord Edmund Tully of Riverrun, who leads a popular rebellion of the Rivermen against the Ironborn. Aegon rewards Tully by naming him Overlord of the Riverlands. Aegon's army then defeats the allied forces of King Myrnine Gardner of the Reach and King Loren Lannister of the Rock on what becomes known as the Field of Fire, as more than 4,000 men are burned alive by the dragons. House Gardner is extinguished, so Aegon names the stewards of Highgarden as Overlords of the Reach. House Tyrell, a cadet branch of House Gardner. King Loren surrenders to Aegon, who names him Overlord of the Westerlands and allows House Lannister to continue its rule. Aegon's bastard half-brother, Orys Baratheon, kills the Storm King, Argilac the Arrogant, and seizes his castle of Storm's End, along with his daughter whom he takes to wife. Aegon rewards Orys by naming him Overlord of the Stormlands and allowing him to found House Baratheon. Aegon is then legitimized when he enters the city of Oldtown and his war is blessed by the High Septon of the Faith of the Seven. King Torrhen Stark of the North also bows the knee, as does King Aeron of the Vale, but Aegon's attempt to conquer Dorne is thwarted by the Dornish refusal to give battle openly, preferring guerrilla warfare. Aegon decides to allow Dorne to remain independent for now, and returns to the site of his landing to found the city of King's Landing. The reign of the Targaryen dynasty, 37 to 48 AL. Upon Aegon I's death, his son Aenys, born of incest, takes the throne. The Faith of the Seven rejects his legitimacy to rule, and the Faith militant lead a popular uprising against the Targaryens. The weak and indecisive Aenys makes his younger half-brother Maegor the Hand of the King and gives him authority to deal with the crisis. Maegor's response is bloody and ferocious, resulting in the deaths of thousands in battle, slaughter, and dragonfire. Aenys rules for only 5 years before his death, after which Maegor usurps the throne ahead of Aenys's children. The slaughter of the Faith militant uprising lasts all of Aenys and Maegor's reigns. 48 AL. Aenys' son, Jaehaerys I, becomes king. Jaehaerys declares a truce and agrees to end the slaughter in return for the Faith militant disbanding and accepting, but not approving, the Targaryen practices of incestuous marriage. They agree, and the Faith and the throne are reconciled. Jaehaerys I becomes known as the conciliator for his ability to solve crises without the need for violence. During the reign of Jaehaerys I, the Night's Watch had declined to the point that it could no longer fully man a castle as large as the Night Fort, which had fallen into disrepair. The Watch officially abandons the Night Fort and moves its headquarters to further east along the wall at Castle Black. 103 AL. Upon Jaehaerys I's death, after an unmatched 55-year reign, he is succeeded by his grandson, who becomes King Viserys I, Targaryen. 129 to 131 AL. The first major civil war in the history of the unified Seven Kingdoms. Upon the death of King Viserys I Targaryen, the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, Ser Criston Cole, names Viserys' son Aegon II as king, despite Viserys' command that the crown be passed to his eldest child, his daughter Rhaenyra. The resulting war pits brother against sister and dragon against dragon in the war known as the Dance of Dragons. Aegon II's dragon consumes Rhaenyra, but the war continues in the name of her son, Aegon III. The death of Aegon II resolves the war, since Aegon III is the only heir to both of the combatants. The conflict is costly, with most of the Targaryen dragons being killed in the fighting. The last surviving Targaryen dragon, a sickly green runt, dies during Aegon III's reign, earning him the nickname Dragonbane. 157 to 161 AL. The reign of the young dragon, King Daeron I, who takes the throne at the age of 14 and almost immediately launches an invasion of Dorne. Daeron's military genius is notable, and he eventually forces the submission of Sunspear. Unfortunately, he leaves a Tyrell of Highgarden, who have warred with the Martells for 1,000 years, in charge. Tyrell's tyranny triggers an uprising against the Iron Throne. When Daeron I returns with a fresh army, he is killed. His cousin Prince Aemon the Dragon Knight is captured and his army defeated. Daeron I died childless, so the throne passed to his brother Balon, who forged a peace treaty with Dorne, including the marriage of his first cousin once removed Daeron to Princess Mariah Martell. 161 to 171 AL. The reign of King Baelor the Blessed, the Septon King. Baelor is pious and holy, keeping the realm at peace. Upon his death, a huge new sept he is building in King's Landing is named the Great September of Baelor in his name. Baelor is so religiously zealous that he remains celibate. Instead of marrying one of his sisters in Targaryen custom, he has all three locked away in a tower of the Red Keep known as the Maiden Vault, so that they will not tempt him with carnal thoughts. 172 to 184 AL. The reign of King Aegon IV, Aegon the Unworthy, held to be the worst king in the history of Westeros. A glutton and a cruel, petty man, Aegon has a total of 9 mistresses he keeps at court, to the dismay of his sister-wife Naerys. He holds his son and heir, Daeron II, in disfavor due to his Dornish wife and peaceful ways, and gives a Valyrian steel blade of House Targaryen, Blackfyre, to his bastard son Daemon, whom he thinks is more martial and worthy of it. He takes the new name Daemon Blackfyre, after the sword, and founds the cadet branch of House Targaryen known as House Blackfyre. Upon his death, Daeron II succeeds to the Iron Throne. 195 to 196 AL. Claiming that Daeron II is actually the product of an illegitimate relationship between Queen Naerys and her other brother, Prince Aemon the Dragon Knight, Daemon Blackfyre claims the Iron Throne. Half the realm declares for him, and the resulting civil war is known as the First Blackfyre Rebellion. This is a brutal and bitter conflict that kills many tens of thousands. Eventually, Daemon amasses enough strength to march on King's Landing, allied to the forces of his bastard half-brother Aegor Bittersteel Rivers. Daeron II's sons, Baelor and Meekar, lead an army to stop him, assisted by another of Aegon IV's bastards, Brynden, Bloodraven Rivers. The resulting engagement, the Battle of the Redgrass Field, is one of the largest battles fought in Westerosi history. Bloodraven slays Daemon Blackfyre with arrows and then fights Bittersteel in single combat. The arrival of a Dornish army in support of the king routs the Blackfyre forces. Bittersteel flees the field with Daemon's surviving sons, taking them to safety in the Free Cities. 197 AL. In thanks for the Dornish assistance on the Redgrass Field, Daeron II marries his younger sister Daenerys to Prince Meryn Martell, formally bringing Dorne into the Seven Kingdoms. Due to the peaceable union, Dorne is allowed to maintain a number of its own customs, including allowing women equal inheritance rights, and the ruler of Dorne is allowed to retain the title prince. 209 AL. The Great Spring Sickness tears through Westeros, killing King Daeron and most of his heirs. Aerys I Targaryen becomes king. He names Bloodraven as his hand. Ser Duncan the Tall begins his great friendship with Meekar's fourth son, Aegon. Duncan runs afoul of Aegon's older brother, the arrogant Aerion Brightflame. Dunk and Egg, as they are known, embark on numerous adventures across Westeros in the following years. 211 AL. Blackfyre loyalists attempt to launch a second Blackfyre rebellion, but Bloodraven exposes the plan, captures one of Daemon Blackfyre's sons, and executes many of the conspirators before a battle needs to be fought. 221 AL. After Aerys I dies childless, his younger brother Meekar I, fourth son of Dorne II, becomes king of the Seven Kingdoms. 233 AL. Meekar I dies fighting an outlaw knight. With his eldest two sons dead, one from a pox, and Aerion from drinking wildfire in a fit of madness, the council offers the crown to Meekar's third son, a maester of the citadel named Aemon. He refuses and removes himself to the wall. Meekar's fourth son, also known as Egg, takes the throne, becoming King Aegon V Targaryen. He is called Aegon the Unlikely, because as the fourth son of a fourth son, he was initially far behind in the line of succession. Ser Duncan joins Aegon V's Kingsguard. During his reign, Bloodraven is exiled to the Wall for reasons unclear to history. 233 to 259 AL. The rule of Aegon V. This is a period of peace and plenty for the Seven Kingdoms. During the last year of Aegon V's reign, Pycelle is named as Grand Maester. Ca 257 to 259 AL. The War of the Nine Penny Kings, also known as the Fifth Blackfyre Rebellion, erupts in the last years of Aegon V's reign. A group of mercenaries, fortune-seekers, and ne'er-do-wells known as the Band of Nine combines their strength to carve out their own territories. Among them is Meleys the Monstrous, the last of the Blackfyre pretenders. After taking over the disputed lands in Tyrosh, they conquer the Stepstones as the opening move of an invasion meant to claim the Seven Kingdoms in the name of House Blackfyre. Ser Barristan Selmy kills Meleys in single combat, ending the Blackfyre line, and the Band of Nine are soon dispersed. The young Barristan and Ser Brynden Blackfish Tully win great fame and glory during the war, and return home as celebrated heroes. 259 AL. King Aegon and his son Prince Duncan are killed in a great fire at Summerhall, the Targaryen summer palace, apparently during an attempt to hatch the last 3 dragon eggs left in the west. Aegon's son, Aerys II Targaryen, becomes king. The eggs are assumed destroyed in the fire. The reign of the Mad King. 259 AL. King Aerys' reign begins with great promise. He sweeps aside the old men of his father and grandfather's courts and replaces them with young, vigorous replacements. 260 AL. Meleys Blackfyre, the last of the Blackfyre pretenders, plans to invade Westeros from a base in the Stepstones, but Aerys sends an army against him in a preemptive attack. In the resulting War of the Nine Penny Kings, Meleys is killed by a promising young knight named Barristan Selmy. During the war, Hoster Tully of Riverrun makes the acquaintance of a Baelish of the Fingers, later accepting his son Peter as a ward at Riverrun. 270 AL. Young Tywin Lannister puts down the Rain Rebellion to restore Lannister dominance over the Westerlands, and has any surviving Rain's man, woman, and child put to the sword, as an example to any vassal who would dare challenge Casterly Rock again. The eradication of House Rain is the first major step in the return to glory of House Lannister, in which Tywin almost single-handedly rebuilt the fortunes and strength of his house. Impressed with Tywin's ruthlessness, King Aerys Targaryen appoints him as his new hand. Tywin continues to ably serve in this position for 20 years, during which the Seven Kingdoms and the Lannisters in particular enjoy peace and prosperity. 270s AL. Cracks begin to appear in Aerys' demeanor. He refuses to marry his son Rhaegar to Tywin's daughter Cersei, instead having Rhaegar marry Princess Elia Martell of Dorne. Aerys becomes paranoid over talk in the castle that Tywin is the true ruler of the Seven Kingdoms. When Lord Darklyn of Duskendale refuses to pay his taxes, Aerys resolves to crush the problem himself without Tywin's aid. Unfortunately, the situation gets out of control and Aerys is imprisoned for several months in Duskendale before Tywin and Barristan Selmy assault the castle and rescue him. The Darklyns are burned alive for their treachery. Later historians claim that the defiance of Duskendale marked the beginning of the end for Aerys' sanity. C.270s C.290 AL. According to Tyrion Lannister, Westeros has experienced 9 winters during his lifetime, the last ending around 290 AL. Tyrion states that the winter during which he was born was the longest of these, lasting 3 years. C. 280 AL. In a year of false spring, a great tournament is held by Lord Whent at Harrenhal. King Aerys and Prince Rhaegar attend, as do many lords from across the Seven Kingdoms. Prince Rhaegar wins the tournament, but names Lyanna Stark of Winterfell as the Queen of Love and Beauty rather than his own wife Elia. Lord Tywin Lannister is enraged when Aerys names his son Jaime to the Kingsguard, disinheriting him as Tywin's heir in favor of his ugly, misshapen younger brother Tyrion. Furious, Tywin resigns the handship and returns to Casterly Rock. A few years later, Rhaegar allegedly kidnaps Lyanna against her will and disappears with her. Lyanna's brother Brandon and father Lord Rickard demand justice from King Aerys, but he has Ricard burned alive and Brandon strangled to death for daring to question what the Targaryens would choose to do. Robert's Rebellion, 280 to 281 AL. In response to the king's murder of Ricard and Brandon Stark, the new Lord of Winterfell, Eddard Stark, raises the banners of the North. Robert Baratheon, Lord of Storm's End and betrothed to Lyanna, joins the rebellion, raising the banners of the Stormlands. Lord Jon Arryn of the Vale, a mentor to both Robert and Eddard, does the same. Lord Hoster Tully of Riverrun, who had planned to marry his daughter Catelyn to Brandon Stark, instead agrees to marry her to Eddard in exchange for his support in war. In addition, he marries his second daughter Lisa to Jon Arryn to shore up the alliance. The Stark, Tully, and Arryn armies begin gathering north of the Trident, but Robert's forces are cut off far to the south. Leaving his brother Stannis to hold Storm's End, Robert marches his army northwest through enemy territory. He is defeated at the Battle of Ashford by Tyrell forces loyal to the king, but manages to cross the Trident and link up with the other rebels. While Lord Mace Tyrell besieges Storm's End for a year, Prince Rhaegar leads a royalist army to directly engage the rebels, but is defeated at the Battle of the Trident and killed in battle by Robert. Lord Tywin's army arrives at King's Landing to defend the city, but once the gates are open the Lannisters sack the city brutally. Aerys too is killed by Jaime Lannister, while Targaryen loyalists smuggle his surviving children Viserys and Daenerys to safety in the Free Cities. Robert Baratheon, due to a blood relationship with House Targaryen, is proclaimed King of the Seven Kingdoms. With Lyanna dead, Robert instead marries Cersei Lannister to shore up the alliance that brought down the Targaryens. King Robert's reign, 289 AL. The Greyjoy Rebellion. Lord Balon Greyjoy leads a rebellion against King Robert's reign, attempting to secede the Iron Islands from the rest of the realm. After several months of furious fighting in the Westerlands and Riverlands, King Robert's forces push the Ironborn back to Pike and storm the castle. Balon capitulates and surrenders his only surviving son, Theon, as hostage and ward for his good behavior. Robert instructs Eddard Stark to take Theon under his wing. Essos is the name of the great continent lying to the east of Westeros, across the Narrow Sea. It is the largest of the known world's 4 continents, extending for many thousands of miles into the distant east. No map yet exists of the entire continent. The continent is bordered by the Shivering Sea to the north and the Summer Sea and the Jade Sea to the south. Unlike Westeros, Essos is not controlled by a single political entity. Instead, its different regions are controlled by a mixture of city-states, nomadic tribes, and a few small kingdoms. Geography. The westernmost part of the continent is held by the 9 free cities, namely Braavos, Loreth, Pentos, Norvos, Qohor, Myr, Tyrosh, Lys, and Volantis. Each is a powerful mercantile city-state, many of them controlling wide swathes of territory around them. Lying between the southern cities are the disputed lands, which have been fought over by Lys, Myr, Tyrosh, and Volantis for almost 4 centuries. In the northwest of this region is Andalos, the ancestral homeland of the Undulls, which is now mostly uninhabited wasteland. The north of this region is mountainous and home to rich mines, particularly in the Axe and the hills of Norvos. These mountains are the sources for several rivers which come together to form the immense Rhoyne, which flows south for hundreds of miles before emptying into the Summer Sea at Volantis. East of the free cities, beyond the forest of Qohor, lies the vast Dothraki Sea, the home of the nomadic Dothraki people. Living in large clans known as Khalasars, the Dothraki are a feared race of horse-riding warriors who frequently raid surrounding lands. The Dothraki Sea extends for over 2,500 miles into the east, before ending at the immense chain known as the Bone Mountains. Southeast of the free cities lies the peninsula of Valyria. Formerly a warm and pleasant land, this region was shattered in a titanic volcanic cataclysm known as the Doom of Valyria some 4 centuries ago. The city of Valyria itself now lies on an offshore island, separated from the mainland by the forbidding Smoking Sea. Volcanic activity has continued unabated in Valyria for the past 4 centuries, preventing any attempt at resettlement. Only in the north of this region do permanent cities exist, most notably at Illomin Mantaries and the coastal cities of Illyria and Tolos. To the east of the Valyrian peninsula lies Slaver's Bay, with the great slave cities of Meereen, Yunkai and Astapor clinging to its eastern shores. These rich and powerful cities serve as the center of the world's slave trade. The Dothraki often sell their captives there, if they require gold for some enterprise. South of Slavers Bay lies the nation of Giskar, which claims to have inherited the mantle of the ancient Giskari Empire. So far the Giskari have claimed a few small settlements along the coast of the Gulf of Grief and the offshore island of Gen. East of Slavers Bay, separated from the Dothraki Sea by the Skahazadan River, lies the peaceful kingdom of Lazar. The Lazarene are a notably unwarlike people, preferring a peaceful life raising sheep. The Dothraki call them the Lamb Men and frequently raid them to steal cattle and take slaves. East of Lazar lies the Red Waste, a harsh desert dotted with ruined cities and few sources of water. The Red Waste extends east to the Bone Mountains and south to the Summer Sea. Southeast of the waste lies the great city of Karth, which sits on the Straits of Karth or Jade Gates. The straits separate the mainland from the large island of Great Morik, and join the Summer Sea to the Jade Sea. North of the Dothraki Sea lies the large island of Ibi, or Ibn. The Ibonese are noted sailors whose ships can be found in many ports of the world. They mostly survive by whaling. The Ibonese also have small colonies on the north coast of Essos. East of Ibn, the Bone Mountains and Karth, hard facts give way to lands of rumor and song. Along the northern coast, beyond Ibn, lies a vast archipelago known as the Thousand Islands. Nestled in the eastern foothills of the Bone Mountains lie the fabled cities of Kayakayanaya, Samiriana, and Bayasabad. Beyond them still lies the vast chasm known as the Great Sand Sea and the Shrinking Sea, once a great inland sea that is now a collection of small lakes. North of them lies the plains of the Jogos Nai, whilst to their east lies the forested lands of Musavi. What lies to the east of Musavi is not known, even to legend. South of Musavi lie the Grey Waste, the canyon known as the Dry Deep and the red-hued lake known as the Bleeding Sea. East of Karth and south of the Great Sand Sea and Shrinking Sea lies the fabled kingdom of Et. Et stretches along the northern coast of the Jade Sea, consisting of great cities and hot jungles. It is the center of wealth on the Jade Sea, with ships sailing from across the known world to trade there. East of Et and south of the Grey Waste and Dry Deep lie the mountains of the Morn. South of them lies a forbidding area of mountains and hills shrouded in darkness, known as the Shadow Lands or Shadow. This area extends southwards along a mountainous peninsula, at the very tip of which is the port city of Ashai. Ashai sits at the point where the Jade Sea meets the Saffron Straits. What lies beyond Ashai and the straits to the east is not known, whilst the little-known continent of Ulthos lies south of the straits. Climate and seasons. Like Westeros, Essos is prone to the lengthy and unpredictable seasons of the world. However, as it lies further south than northern Westeros, these seasonal variations tend to be much milder. That said, the winters are still cold enough to cause the canals of Braavos to freeze over. In terms of climate, Essos tends to be warmer than northern Westeros, due to its more southerly location. Essos's greater size gives rise to considerably larger mountain ranges than anything in Westeros, inland seas, and, most notably, large plains such as the lands of the Jogos Nai and the Dothraki Sea, as well as deserts such as the Red Waste. Size. Essos is larger than Westeros, but given that its eastern coast has never been mapped, working out the full size of the continent is impossible. The mapped portion of Essos extends for approximately 6,000 miles eastwards from the Narrow Sea, with the continent being 3,000 miles across from north to south at its widest point, between Ashai and the coast of Musavi. The continent is narrower in the west, with less than 2,000 miles separating the north and southern coasts of the Free Cities region. Population. Given the lack of a central controlling government, estimating the population of the continent of Essos is impossible. However, it is known that most of the Free Cities and the cities of Slavers Bay have populations in the hundreds of thousands, with Dothraki Khalasars running into the tens of thousands called Drogos Khalasar. Noted as being unusually large, consisted of 40,000 riders and 60,000 unmounted followers. The population of Essos must thus be greater than Westeros's, which runs into the millions or tens of millions. Government. The Free Cities are ruled by a mixture of councils, elected individuals and hereditary rulers. The Khalasars of the Dothraki are ruled by Khals, war leaders who have earned their position through battle prowess and cunning. The cities of Slavers Bay and Karth are ruled by the richest merchants. Military. There are numerous military formations in Essos. Unlike Westeros and its levies, many of the Essosi powers prefer to retain standing armies, around which additional troops can be raised. The Essosi also employ mercenary companies, freelance armies which fight for coin. The most famous such companies include the Golden Company, the Stormcrows, and the Second Sons. Despite their armed might, most of the Essosi powers live in fear of the Dothraki. The Dothraki are the most feared cavalry force in the world, able to field vast armies of tens of thousands of horsemen. Though they lack heavy armor, they make up for it in maneuverability, numbers, and discipline. The only military force in Essos that rivals the Dothraki in reputation is that of the Unsullied, warrior eunuch slaves bred and trained in Astapor and notable for not being able to feel pain, thanks to drugs. Unsullied are notable as the only foreign force that the Dothraki respect, after the Unsullied defeated them in battle at Qohor several centuries ago. Religion. Essos is a hodgepodge of numerous, sometimes competing religious beliefs. Braavos hosts a number of temples to numerous different gods and permits the worship of all. Braavos is the only place outside of Westeros to host a sept for the worship of the Faith of the Seven. The free city of Lys worships a native love goddess, whilst the citizens of Qohor worship a god called the Black Goat. The Drunken God and Trios are deities known in Tyrosh. A lunar deity is also worshipped by the Moonsingers, who were the most popular religion in Braavos, as they led the founding of the city 8 centuries ago. Lawler, the Lord of Light, is a popular deity across Essos. The religion has temples in Lys, Braavos, and Volantis, is known in Slavers Bay, and also has a center of worship in distant Ashai. The Lazarene worship the Great Shepherd, whilst the Dothraki worship the Great Stallion, a deity that respects strength and stamina. The Giscari follow a religion based around the temples of the Graces, which are located in each of their major cities, including Meereen and Astapor. Each temple is led by a green grace. This religion seems to be largely made up of priestesses, with few or no priests. Karth is notable for not having any major temples or native religion. This may be due to the Undying, an order of warlocks, instead providing many of the services that a religion might. People. Essos is home to numerous ethnic groups and races, although, unlike Westeros, no non-human races that are known of. The free cities are dominated by people of Valyrian descent, though some surviving Undul and Rhoynar blood is likely. The Dothraki are the dominant group of the central part of the continent, but there has been cross-pollination between them and other peoples they have conquered. The cities of Slavers Bay and Giscur to the south are Giscari in blood and origin. Beyond the Bone Mountains lie more rarely encountered peoples, such as the Jogos Nhai, Ashai, and the people of the Shadow, who go masked amongst outsiders. History. 5,000 years ago, the Giscari Empire was the dominant power of south-central Essos. Shepherds living peacefully on the Valyrian Peninsula discovered dragons lairing in the 14 Fires, a chain of large volcanoes stretching across the neck of the peninsula. Possibly using sorcery, the Valyrians tamed these dragons and began riding them, using them in war. The Valyrians fought 5 great wars against Guise, eventually destroying the capital city of Old Guise and bringing about the downfall of the Giscari Empire. The Valyrians began expanding in their own right, inheriting the lands of the old Giscari Empire and establishing their own colonies, the first of which was at Volantis. 1,000 years ago, the Valyrians made war upon the Rhoynar, destroying their cities with dragonfire. The Rhoynar fled by sea, escaping to Dorne in Westeros. The Valyrians overran western Essos, establishing 8 colony states along the coast and in the rich hills and forests of the north. 2 centuries later, a religious sect known as the Moonsingers led an exodus of people, opposed to Valyrian rule, to found the secret city of Braavos, where they could live free of Valyrian rule. For centuries ago, the Valyrian freehold was destroyed in a single night of fire and chaos. The 14 Fires erupted, destroying the Valyrian peninsula and raining fire down on all the lands of Valyria and the lands of the Long Summer to the north. Almost all of the Valyrian dragons were destroyed. Most of the Valyrian nobility was wiped out, save only for the rulers of the colony cities to the northwest and the Targaryens, a noble family living in self-imposed exile on the island of Dragonstone in the Narrow Sea. For For a century after the doom, Volantis led the way in attempting to rebuild the freehold, at one point seizing control of Myr and Lys for several decades. An attempt to take Tyrosh saw them overextend, and they were defeated in a bloody war, losing all of their lands save Volantis itself. At the end of this period, the Targaryens invaded Westeros with their dragons, uniting it under the rule of Aegon I Targaryen. Also during this period, the Dothraki emerged from the east, beginning their rise to power that would see most of the former colonies cower before them. The exception was Qohor, which hired an army of unsullied warrior eunuchs who defeated the Dothraki in open battle. Following the fall of Valyria, the Giscari became more resurgent. They founded the city of New Guise and proclaimed the rise of a new empire. However, the Giscari cities of Slavers Bay refused to join this new nation and remained independent. A century ago, there was a bloody civil war in Westeros known as the First Blackfire Rebellion. After the defeat of the rebels at the Battle of the Redgrass Field, their surviving leaders fled to Essos. Under the leadership of Igor Rivers, better known as Bittersteel, they established a mercenary army known as the Golden Company, vowing to one day return him from exile. However, the fifth such attempt, the War of the Nine Penny Kings, ended in disaster. Their then leader, Maelys the Monstrous, was slain by Ser Barristan Selmy on the Stepstones, ending the male line of the Blackfires. Since then, the Golden Company has remained active in Essos, fighting for coin. In Westeros and most of the lands west of Valyria, magic is held to be a mythical force. There has been no recorded use of magic in Westeros since the doom of Valyria, and those records are considered unreliable. However, in the lands east of Valyria, magic remains a potent force. The Undying of Qarth command uncanny and bizarre powers, whilst Shadowbinders from Asshai are capable of great and terrible feats, including restoring life of a kind to the dead and commanding shadows as assassins. In past centuries, individuals representing these and other groups have come to Westeros only to find their skills deserting them. But in the past 2 years, the power of magic within Westeros appears to have increased, and abilities that were long thought lost now appear to be returning, although this is commonly neither known nor accepted. It is possible the return of magic to the west is related to the return to the world of dragons, but this is not confirmed. Sithorios is a continent located to the south of Essos and east of Westeros, across the Summer Sea from both. The northernmost part of the continent has been mapped and explored, but the bulk of the landmass remains uncharted. Sithorios is a land of hot, humid jungles and, it is reported, boiling deserts farther south. It is also noted as a land of plagues, ruined cities and hostile wildlife. Geography. Sithorios is located across the Summer Sea from Slavers Bay, southeast of Valyria. The north coast of the continent consists of thick jungle, with the ruined cities of Zemeter and Yin located near the coast. The ruined city of Garrosh lies directly on the coast near the northeastern tip of the explored portion of Sithorios. The explored part of Sithorios stretches between two peninsulas, Basilisk Point in the west and Wyvern Point in the east. The Cinnamon Straits divide Wyvern Point from the islands of Great Morrick and Lesser Morrick. The Jade Sea washes against the northeastern coast of Sithorios. Several islands stretch along the north coast of Sithorios, including the Isle of Tears, Isle of Toads, Axe Isle and Isle of Skulls. The Basilisk Isles form a dense cluster of islands of its northwestern coast, with Noth located some distance further west. The size and extent of Sithorios south of the mapped part of the continent is not known. Climate and seasons. Located far to the south of even Dorne, Sithorios is extremely hot and humid. The impact of the long winters on the landmass is unknown, but likely to be even less notable than that on southern Essos. According to some reports, the thick jungles of the north coast give way to immense, hot deserts further south. Size. The mapped portion of Sithorios extends for approximately 1,000 miles from east to west, and more than 500 miles southwards to the limit of the explored part of the continent. The size beyond that is unknown. Population. There are no known inhabited cities on Sithorios, only primitive tribes who are often raided by the cities of Slavers Bay to provide slaves for their markets. History. The ruins of Zemeter, Yin, and Garrosh suggest that Sithorios once possessed civilization of a kind. However, these cities appear to have been destroyed by tidal waves during the doom of Valyria some 4 centuries ago and never resettled. The history of the continent beyond that is not known. Althos is the smallest, the least known and most obscure of the known world's 4 continents. It is located south of Ashai and the Shadowlands and east of Sithorios. The continent forms the southeastern coastline of the Jade Sea. Geography. Althos is separated from Ashai and the Shadowlands by the Saffron Straits, which link the Jade Sea to as yet unknown seas further east. The island of Eulos lies off the north coast of Althos. Only the extreme northern coast of Althos appears on maps and is almost entirely lacking in details, save for the existence of a large river emptying into the Jade Sea and a dense covering of dark forest covering much of the surrounding land. Size. The mapped portion of Althos stretches from the southwest to the northeast along the Saffron Straits for just over 1,000 miles. The size of the remainder of the continent is not known. Westeros is a continent located in the far west of the known world. It is separated from the continent of Essos by a strip of water known as the Narrow Sea. Most of the action in Game of Thrones takes place in Westeros. Author of the series George R.R. Martin has stated that the continent of Westeros is roughly the same size as the real-life continent of South America. Almost the entire continent, barring only the lands in the furthest north beyond the Wall, is ruled by a single political entity known as the Seven Kingdoms, which holds fealty to the King of the Undulls and the First Men, who sits on the Iron Throne in the city of King's Landing. The terms Seven Kingdoms and Westeros are normally used interchangeably. Geography. Westeros is bordered to the west by the Sunset Sea, to the south by the Summer Sea and to the east by the Narrow Sea and Shivering Sea. The northern edges of the continent have not been charted, but are believed to extend to the northern polar ice cap. The continent shares similar geography and geometry to the Isle of Great Britain, and is narrow, about 900 miles wide at its widest point, but long, extending for almost 2,000 miles from the Summer Sea to the wall that marks the northern border of the Seven Kingdoms. The extent of the wildling lands beyond the wall are unknown. The continent's terrain varies immensely. There are significant mountain ranges, such as the Mountains of the Moon in the Vale of Arryn, the Red Mountains of Dorne and the Frostfangs. There are also several extensive river networks, most notably the River Trident and its numerous tributaries, but also the Blackwater Rush, the White Knife, the Mander, and the Greenblood. Climate varies between extremes of heat and cold across the large continent. The north is the only region in which snowfall is common, even in the middle of the years-long summers. Beyond the wall the temperature becomes even lower and hostile, forming the taiga woodlands of the Haunted Forest, reaching into the truly polar regions of the lands of always winter, in the unmapped farthest north. In the far south the terrain becomes hotter and more arid, and Dorne contains the continent's only deserts. Notable offshore islands include Bear Island, Skagos, the Iron Islands, Tarth, Dragonstone, and the Arbor. The continent is also home to immense woodlands, such as the Haunted Forest beyond the Wall. South of the Wall, within the Seven Kingdoms, there are 3 major forested regions. The Wolfswood around Winterfell, the Kingswood south of King's Landing and straddling the northern border of the Stormlands, and the Rainwood in the southern half of the same region. Numerous smaller wooded areas dot the continent. Westeros is separated from the eastern continent of Essos by the Narrow Sea, and also by the island chain known as the Stepstones. According to myth, the Stepstones are a remnant of an ancestral land bridge linking Westeros and Essos together, destroyed in a cataclysm more than 10,000 years ago. As well as the vast eastern continent of Essos, other lands are known to exist. The Summer Islands lie to the south of Westeros, and there is regular trade between the islands and the Seven Kingdoms. A forbidding, mostly unexplored continent called Sithorios is also known to exist to the southeast across the Summer Sea, but there is little contact between it and Westeros. Some islands are known to exist in the Sunset Sea to the west of Westeros, but the true extent of this ocean is unknown. To the east of northern Westeros lies the island of Ibben, home to traders and whalers, who occasionally trade with the Seven Kingdoms and the free cities of Essos. Climate and seasons. Westeros's climate shifts from a subarctic wasteland in the furthest north, beyond the Wall, to a desert climate in the furthest south, along the peninsula of Dorne. In the normal course of events, the furthest north still has light snowfalls even in the longest summers, while Dorne almost never sees snow, even in the most severe winters. Westeros and Essos both experience seasons of varying length, usually lasting at least a couple of years each. The length of the seasons is completely unpredictable and varies randomly. The maesters of the Citadel keep a close eye on the length of the days in order to try to predict how long the current season will last. But this is an inexact science at best. At the time the series opens, the world has been experiencing a summer that has lasted for 9 years, which is unusually long, and the maesters fear that an equally long winter will follow. Westeros extends much further north than Essos, so is much more adversely affected by long winters, while Essos, which extends into equatorial regions, is typically warmer. In the north, the winters are extremely cruel. Lords set aside non-perishable food items for storage against the next winter, while many of the north's most notable strongholds are built in favorable areas, such as Winterfell on hot springs or the Dreadfort of House Bolton on volcanic vents. Some castles, like Winterfell, have elaborate greenhouses which permit the growing of vegetables even in the harshest winters. Despite these precautions, famine and starvation is common during northern winters, and is one of the reasons the North has a small population despite its vast size. There is a suggestion that the long seasons are not natural in origin, but may have stemmed from a near-mythical event called the Long Night 8,000 years ago, when it is said that the White Walkers used the cover of a winter that lasted a generation and a night that lasted for years to invade Westeros. They were defeated in the War for the Dawn, thrown back into the furthest north and prevented from returning by the raising of the wall, but the seasons never recovered. Maesters are highly skeptical of this story, dismissing it as folklore, despite the inarguable presence of the wall. History. 12,000 years ago, Westeros was inhabited by the diminutive children of the forest, a non-human race who lived in peace and harmony with nature, worshipping the old gods of the forest. The first men, a human ethnic group, invaded Westeros across the Arm of Dorne, armed with weapons of bronze. In a significant military conflict, in which the children allegedly destroyed the Arm of Dorne with magic, resulting in the Stepstone Islands, and flooded the Neck, the two sides fought to a standstill and made a pact of friendship and alliance. The first men adopted the worship of the old gods at this time. 4,000 years later, Westeros was invaded by the White Walkers during a winter that lasted for a generation. In the War for the Dawn, they were defeated by an alliance of the first men and the children, though only at grievous cost. The children disappeared from Westeros at this time. Brandon Stark, Bran the Builder, raised the wall to bar the White Walkers from returning and founded the Night's Watch to guard it. He also built the castle of Winterfell and established House Stark as the ruling house of the Kingdom of the North. 2,000 years later, the Undulls invaded Westeros from across the Narrow Sea, landing in the Vale and sweeping across the continent. The Undulls conquered the southern half of the continent but failed to seize the north, being thrown back several times at the defensive choke point of Moat Cailin. A patchwork of numerous small Undul kingdoms took shape across the south, eventually coalescing into several larger nations. 1,000 years ago, the Rhoynar, the warrior people of the Upper Rhoyne, a river network on Essos, fell into warfare with the mighty Valyrian freehold. The Valyrians destroyed the Rhoynar cities using dragons. Nymeria, warrior queen of the Rhoynar, led her people across the Summer Sea in 10,000 ships to land in Dorne. Making alliance with Prince Mors Martell of Sunspear, Nymeria conquered the myriad small kingdoms and lordships of Dorne to establish a powerful, proud, and independent kingdom. For centuries ago, Valyria was destroyed in a volcanic cataclysm, the Doom. A century later, the scions of House Targaryen, who ruled the Valyrian trading outpost on the island of Dragonstone, invaded Westeros with a small army and 3 dragons. Aegon the Conqueror accepted the fealty of 6 kingdoms, while several generations later his descendants were able to bring Dorne into the Union through peaceful alliance, hence the term 7 Kingdoms. For centuries, the 7 kingdoms have been shaped by rebellion and war. However, through civil wars and the loss of their dragons to time and conflict, the Targaryens ruled the entire continent, bar the lands beyond the Wall, for over 280 years until the actions of the Mad King Aerys II triggered the civil war known as Robert's Rebellion. At the end of this civil war, Aerys II and most of his family were slain and his surviving children fled into exile in the free cities. Robert Baratheon took the throne and at the start of the series has ruled for 17 years. Regions. The 7 kingdoms are divided into 9 administrative regions, 7 of which were former independent kingdoms before the Targaryen conquest. Each region, except the Crownlands, is ruled by a great house, who in turn are commanded by the king on the Iron Throne. These regions are the North, ruled by House Stark from the castle of Winterfell. Bastards born in the North take the surname Snow. The principal port and city of the North is White Harbor. The North is the largest of the regions of Westeros but also the most sparsely populated, due to the harshness of the long winter. The North also includes the Wall and the lands administered by the Night's Watch, which are technically independent but are almost always thought of in conjunction with the North. The Vale of Arryn, ruled by House Arryn from the castle known as the Eyrie. Bastards born in the Vale take the surname Stone. The principal port and city of the Vale is Gulltown. The Vale is dominated and mostly covered by the Mountains of the Moon and its offshoot chains. Its borders are prowled by hostile hill tribes. The Riverlands, ruled by House Tully from the castle of Riverrun. Bastards born in the Riverlands take the surname Rivers. The principal ports of the Riverlands are Seaguard, Saltpans, and Maidenpool. Notable towns include Stony September. The Riverlands are dominated by the mighty River Trident and its numerous tributaries, including the Tumblestone. The Riverlands, lying close to the center of the continent, have been the site for battles and conflicts throughout the history of Westeros. Once an independent kingdom, they were overrun by the Ironborn a century before Aegon's invasion, and are thus not counted as an eighth kingdom, despite their significant size and population. The Riverlands are, as their name suggests, one of the most fertile and populous regions in Westeros, which is in many ways the only reason they have been consistently able to recover from the frequent wars that cross their borders. The Westerlands, ruled by House Lannister from the castle of Casterly Rock. Bastards born in the Westerlands take the surname Hill. The principal city and port of the Westerlands is Lannisport. The Westerlands are noted for their hills and low mountains which are rich in silver and gold, providing House Lannister and their vassals with immense wealth. The Iron Islands, ruled by House Greyjoy from the castle of Pike on the island of the same name. Bastards born on the Iron Islands take the surname Pike. The major islands of the chain are Great Wyke, Old Wyke, Harlaw, Blacktide, Orkmont, Saltcliffe, and Pike itself. The Iron Islands are rain-lashed and cold, home to a hardy warrior race, known as the Ironborn. They live for warfare and reaving, and are the most troublesome and rebellious of the Iron Throne subjects. The Crownlands, ruled directly by the king on the Iron Throne from the city of King's Landing, the largest city in Westeros and the capital of the Seven Kingdoms. Bastards born in the Crownlands take the surname Waters. Other notable townships of the Crownlands include Duskendale and Rosby. The Crownlands stretch along the shores of Blackwater Bay and also across several islands in the Narrow Sea, such as Dragonstone, Driftmark, and Claw Isle. The islands are separately administered from Dragonstone. The Stormlands, ruled by House Baratheon from the castle of Storm's End. Bastards born in the Stormlands take the surname Storm. The Stormlands include several offshore islands, most notably Estermont and Tarth. It ranks moderately among the other regions in terms of population and wealth. The Stormlands are racked by frequent storms off the Narrow Sea and experience significant rainfall. The Stormlands are also one of the most densely wooded areas in Westeros, particularly south of the Neck. It contains not only the Rainwood, which covers the southern half of the Stormlands, but also shares much of the Kingswood, spilling across the northern border with the Crownlands. As a result, its climate is in general that of a temperate rainforest. The Reach, ruled by House Tyrell from the castle of Highgarden. Bastards born in the Reach take the surname Flowers. The principal city and port of the Reach is Oldtown, the second largest city of Westeros. The Reach is the second largest region of Westeros and by far the most fertile and populous, allowing the Tyrells to field vast armies and also results in them being wealthier than any other family but the Lannisters. The Reach also includes several offshore islands, such as the Shield Islands and the Arbor. Dorne, ruled by House Martell from the castle of Sunspear. Bastards born in Dorne take the surname Sand. The principal ports of Dorne are Sunspear itself and the Planky town at the mouth of the Greenblood. The people of Dorne are isolated from the rest of Westeros by the Sea of Dorne and the Red Mountains, giving them a greater sense of national identity than most of the other peoples of the Seven Kingdoms, even more than the Ironborn and the Northmen. Since Robert's Rebellion and the murder of several prominent Dornish nobles during the sack of King's Landing, the Dornish have pursued a more isolationist path. Beyond the Wall, a vast, snow-covered wilderness independent from the Iron Throne and separated from the Seven Kingdoms by the Wall. It is inhabited by tribes of people known as wildlings, who often attempt to raid along the Bay of Seals or the Bay of Ice or climb over the Wall for the same purposes. Population. The population of Westeros extends into many millions, though a precise count has never been attempted. The major cities of the continent have populations in the hundreds of thousands, and each of the great houses can field a reasonably well-equipped army in the tens of thousands. Due to its desert climate, Dorne has the smallest overall population. Due to their extremely small size, the Iron Islands are also among the least populated. The North has one of the smallest overall populations and is the most sparsely populated region, with huge regions of deserted wilderness extending between the major towns and holdfasts. Meanwhile, the prosperous and fertile Reach is the most heavily populated, followed closely by the Riverlands. Westeros is overwhelmingly populated by humans, to the point that non-human sapient races are considered mythical. However, it is known that the enigmatic White Walkers have returned to the far north of Westeros. There are several notable human ethnic groups currently extant in Westeros. First Men. The First Men were the original human inhabitants of Westeros, who crossed the Arm of Dorne and fought with the Children of the Forest before making peace with them. Thousands of years later, the Undulls invaded Westeros and displaced or conquered the First Men everywhere south of the Neck. As a result, the First Men are still the predominant ethnic group in the north, though 6,000 years of intermarriage with Undull lords has blurred this somewhat. Free Folk. The people who live beyond the Wall are called themselves the Free Folk, called Wildlings by people south of the Wall, and are not held to be subject to the Iron Throne. They are descended from those First Men who lived north of the Wall when it was constructed. The Free Folk are not a homogeneous single group, but consist of numerous different tribes, townsfolk, farmers, fisherfolk and warriors, who mostly spend more time fighting one another than the forces of the Seven Kingdoms. Occasionally, they are united under an overchief known as the King Beyond the Wall. Undulls. The majority of the population of Westeros are descended from the Undulls who invaded the continent some 6,000 years ago. The Undulls consider themselves more civilized and cultured than the other peoples of Westeros. Ironborn. The Ironborn are a grouping resulting from the intermarriages between the First Men inhabitants of the Iron Islands and the Undulls who invaded them. While ethnically similar to other regions in the south of Westeros, which also have mixed First Men and Undull ancestry, their isolated geography on a harsh and rocky group of islands separate from the mainland resulted in their culture developing very differently. Rejecting the worship of both the Old Gods and the Seven, they developed their own faith based around the Drowned God and their own culture which favors piracy, martial prowess, and reaving over farming and trading. Rhoynar. The people of Dorne are descended from the Rhoynar, the hardy warrior folk of the eastern continent who settled in Dorne after being driven out of their homeland by the Valyrians, and then intermarried with the local Undulls and First Men. The blood of the Rhoynar is thus intermingled in the Dornishmen. Rhoynar ethnicity is most strongly represented in those who live near the coasts and rivers, and weakest in Dornishmen who live in the interior mountains. They tend to be olive-skinned with dark curly hair. They have a reputation for being hot-headed and sexually liberal. Unlike the other Seven Kingdoms, they practice equal primogeniture. Children of the Forest. The Children of the Forest are a legendary race who ruled Westeros for untold millennia before the arrival of the First Men. According to myth, they were diminutive, long-lived, and few in number, but were protected by the powerful magic of the Greenseers and the martial prowess of their elite warriors, the Wood Dancers. They helped the First Men defeat the White Walkers and raise the Wall, but disappeared from Westeros after the Undull invasion. Maesters of the Citadel today claim that the children were myths and never truly existed. White Walkers. The White Walkers are, according to legend, a race of ice-based creatures hailing from the extreme north. 8,000 years ago, they invaded Westeros and brought cold, terror and death to both the First Men and the children before they were defeated in the War for the Dawn. According to some, they were not destroyed, only defeated, and have spent millennia since this time asleep. Again, these claims are met with extreme skepticism today. Giants. According to the Wildlings, giants still exist north of the Wall and have some contact with the Wildling communities. Settlements. Westeros is home to several distinct types of settlement. Cities. Westeros has a primarily agrarian population, with few major cities relative to its size. The 5 major cities of the continent are, in descending order of population: King's Landing, the capital of the 7 kingdoms with a population of 500,000. The largest city of Westeros, founded by Aegon the Conqueror on the site where he first set foot on the continent. Old Town, the oldest major city on the continent, located in the Reach, ruled by House Hightower for the Tyrells, almost as large and populous as the capital. Lannisport, the largest city on Westeros's west coast, approximately half the size of King's Landing, ruled by House Lannister of Lannisport. Gulltown, the main city and port of the Vale, with a population in the tens of thousands, ruled by House Grafton. White Harbor, the main city and port of the north with a population in the tens of thousands, ruled by House Manderley. The likes of Duskendale, Barrowton, and Stony September, with populations of a few thousand each, are considered to be large towns rather than cities. Castles. Castles are held by the noble houses of Westeros and range in size from the vast, city-sized edifices of Harrenhal or Winterfell to small tower houses or fortified farmsteads run by landed knights. The size of a castle and in what state of repair it is kept reflects the wealth and power of its ruling family. The most notable castles of Westeros include Harrenhal, Storm's End, the Eyrie, Pike, Riverrun, the Twins, Winterfell, the Dreadfort, Casterly Rock, Highgarden, Sunspear, Dragonstone, and the Red Keep of King's Landing. Animals. Westeros is home to several notable animal species. Aurochs, a large bovine animal, used as a beast of burden and domesticated livestock, noted for their extreme size. When dragons were extant in Westeros, the larger ones were known to hunt aurochs. Dragons, winged reptiles of tremendous age and ferocity, capable of breathing fire, originated in the east and enslaved by the Valyrians, who used them to forge their empire. Most dragons were destroyed in the Doom 4 centuries ago, leaving the few possessed by House Targaryen as the only surviving dragons in the world, which they used in their invasion of Westeros. The last Targaryen dragons died over 150 years ago. The skulls of more than a dozen dragons are kept in the Red Keep. The dragon is taken as the sigil of House Targaryen. Dire wolves, a larger cousin of regular wolves, only found north of the Wall. In the south, they are considered near mythical. Occasional sightings of direwolves have been reported by the Night's Watch, but at the time the series starts there have been no confirmed sightings south of the Wall for centuries. The direwolf is taken as the sigil of House Stark. Krakens, massive cephalopods that stalk the world's oceans. So rare that they are largely held to be mythical, though sailors occasionally report seeing them. The Kraken is taken as the sigil of House Greyjoy. Ravens, trained messenger ravens are used as part of a widespread communications network that links all of the major cities and holdfasts in the 7 kingdoms. Shadowcats, large feline predators, found throughout Westeros but most notably in mountainous terrain such as the Vale of Arryn. The Undulls are a race of men who invaded Westeros 6,000 years prior to the events of the series. In the present day, they are the dominant ethnic and cultural group in the continent. History. The original homeland of the Undulls is a region on the west coast of Essos which was called Andalos, located north of the modern free city of Pentos, across the narrow sea from Westeros. 6,000 years ago, after allegedly receiving visions from the seven-faced god, the Undulls were spurred on by their new faith to migrate to Westeros, where they overran and conquered most of the continent, then inhabited by the first men. The Undulls brought the concept of chivalry and iron-wrought weapons and armor with them from Essos. In many cases the Undulls did intermarry with the first men they conquered, so that even House Lannister claims at least some minor descent from the first men. Still, the overwhelming influence on the gene pool of the continent is from the Undulls, to the point that the 7 kingdoms are often called the land of the Undulls by peoples in Essos, such as the Dothraki. The exceptions are the north, which the Undulls never conquered and where the blood of the first men is still strong, and Dorne, where the Undull inhabitants later intermingled with the refugees from the east. The Undulls did also conquer the Iron Islands as they did the rest of southern Westeros, but these Undull families acculturated to the unique Ironborn society on the islands, even goes so far as to convert to the local religion of the drowned god. Thus, while some Undul bloodlines were introduced to the Iron Islands, the cultural impact of their invasion was relatively minor. Culture. Knighthood is a unique Undul cultural tradition. Most of the current population of Westeros is predominantly of Undul descent. Their culture, language, and religion have permeated most of the continent. Knighthood is a distinctly Undul institution, closely tied to the faith of the Seven, and introduced by the Unduls to Westeros. What is known in the present day as the common tongue of Westeros is actually the language of the Unduls, which displaced the old tongue spoken by the First Men. Even the independent First Men living in the north eventually took up the language of their southern Undul neighbors. The First Men are the original human inhabitants of Westeros. They ruled the continent for millennia before the Unduls invaded from the eastern continent of Essos. The Unduls overran most of southern Westeros, but failed to take the north. While the blood of the First Men and the Unduls has intermingled over thousands of years of dynastic marriages, the inhabitants of the north have the greatest amount of First Men blood in their veins and keep their traditions. History. Arrival in Westeros, the Pact, and the Age of Heroes. The First Men invaded Westeros some 12,000 years before the events of the series, crossing via a land bridge from Essos in the vicinity of modern Dorne. They were resisted by the Children of the Forest, a semi-mythical diminutive race who ruled Westeros alone at this time. The Children, using magic, destroyed the land bridge, forming the modern peninsula of Dorne and the shattered islands known as the Stepstones beyond, but were pushed back over the course of many years of warfare. Eventually, the First Men and the Children forged the pact, signed on the Isle of Faces at the center of the vast lake known as God's Eye. The First Men began to forge numerous kingdoms across the continent. The two races subsequently coexisted peacefully for millennia, and during this time the First Men converted to the religion of the Children, worshipping the old gods of the forest. The old gods are nameless and uncountable spirits of nature, and their worship centers around sacred heart trees, weirwood trees which have had faces carved into their bark by the Children of the forest. The fortresses and strongholds of the First Men in Westeros soon began to feature godswoods, sacred garden groves of weirwoods centered around heart trees. About 8,000 years ago, both races came under attack from the White Walkers, a mysterious race of ice and cold from the uttermost north. In the War for the Dawn, the First Men and the Children unified to throw back the invasion. With the aid of giants and the Children, Bran the Builder built the wall and would then build Winterfell and rule as the first king in the north. The First Men subsequently founded the Night's Watch to guard the wall should the White Walkers ever return. After this war, the Children began dwindling in numbers, with the last of them disappearing around the time that the Unduls invaded Westeros, 2 millennia after the War for the Dawn according to tradition. The Undul invasion of Westeros. 6,000 years ago, the Unduls sailed across the narrow sea and began a massive migration to Westeros. First landing in the Vale, the Unduls spread across the continent in waves for the next 1,000 or so years, until they had overrun and conquered almost all of the continent. Their attempts to conquer the north, however, were defeated at every turn, in part because the narrow lands of the Neck which separate the north from the rest of the continent are an ideal strategic choke point, defended by the ancient castle of Moat Cailin. After many centuries the Unduls and First Men made peace, as individual Undul kingdoms carved out of southern Westeros became more concerned with fighting each other than uniting to crush the remaining independent First Men of the north. The results of the Undul invasion varied from region to region. In the Vale of Arryn, the First Men were all but wiped out, and today the nobility of the Vale are considered to have the purest Undul bloodlines in all of Westeros. In many other regions, the Unduls established themselves as the new aristocratic class ruling over the First Men, though after thousands of years these ethnic lines have blurred to a large extent. Some of the noble houses of the First Men survived by intermarrying with Undul invaders. Even House Lannister possesses some First Men blood, through the female line. The Unduls that invaded the Westerlands married the female descendants of Lon the Clever, a legendary hero of the First Men, and House Lannister descends from this union. In the Riverlands, House Blackwood and House Bracken are also dynasties of First Men that survived by intermarrying with the Undul invaders, and today are of mixed ethnicity. The descendants of the First Men. Many of the people living in Westeros have at least some blood of the First Men in their ethnic makeup, though this is more common in the lower classes. Even so, the southern kingdoms of Westeros became so thoroughly dominated by the Undulls and their culture that Westeros is often referred to as the land of the Undulls in Essos. Two groups in Westeros, however, still claim majority descent from the First Men, and still actively embrace the old ways and religion of their ancestors, the Northmen and the Wildlings. The Crannogmen of the Neck are themselves a unique offshoot of the Northerners. Ties of dynastic marriage were made between the North and the Southern kingdoms over the next 6,000 years, so that the blood of both peoples mingled together, a process that has continued under the rule of the Targaryen kings. Still, while the kingdoms south of the Neck consist of heavily mixed Undul and First Men ethnicity, the North is still predominantly First Men. The Wildlings are also descended from the First Men, more so than their distant cousins in the Stark-held North. The Wildlings that live north of the Wall are descended from those First Men who were living north of the Wall when it was constructed, and have an even purer bloodline than the North. There is little, if any, Undul blood north of the Wall. Even in the Stark-held North, the usage of the language of the First Men, the Old Tongue, was eventually discontinued in favor of adopting the language of their Undul neighbors to the south. However, the language of the First Men is still actively used north of the Wall, though a large number of Wildlings are also fluent in the common tongue of the Undulls. The Children of the Forest are a mysterious non-human race that were reportedly the original inhabitants of the continent of Westeros. They were already living in Westeros when the First Men migrated to the continent 12,000 years before Robert's Rebellion. According to legend, they were last seen during the Undul invasion 6,000 years before the War of the Five Kings. In the present day, most believe that they are simply the stuff of myth and never existed at all. Even the few that do believe they once existed, such as Maester Luwin or Ned Stark, believe that they have long since gone extinct. Biology. The Children of the Forest were said to be humanoid, but when grown to manhood they were no taller than human children. They generally preferred to live in the depths of the forests in hidden villages, in crannies of the swamps, or in caves. Thus they came to be known as the Children of the Forest. Culture. The Children of the Forest worshipped nature gods, the countless and nameless spirits of every tree, every rock, and every stream. Their religion, devoted to the old gods of the forest, had no complex temples. But according to legend, it was the children that carved faces into the sacred weirwood trees. These carved heart trees were the closest thing to a shrine in their religion. The Children of the Forest weren't very technologically advanced, though they were very woodcrafty and had a great knowledge of the plants and animals of the forest. They hunted using bows made of weirwood and used blades made of dragonglass. The wise men of the Children of the Forest were known as Greenseers, who are said to have wielded powerful magic. History background. Legend holds that the Children of the Forest ruled Westeros for thousands of years before the arrival of the first humans on the continent 12 millennia ago. They inhabited the vast primeval forests which spanned most of Westeros before humans came and began cutting them down. According to legend, the giants also inhabited Westeros at this time, and clashed periodically with the children. Whatever history, wars, romances, or triumphs the children may have had in the untold centuries that they inhabited Westeros, their stories have been forgotten. 12,000 years ago, the First Men from the eastern continent of Essos migrated to Westeros by crossing a land bridge known as the Arm of Dorne. The First Men began cutting down the children's forests, including the sacred weirwood trees, leading them into conflict with the children. The two races fought a desperate series of wars for dominance for the next 2,000 years, during which the Children of the Forest destroyed the Arm of Dorne and flooded the Neck through the sorcery of their Greenseers. After 2,000 years of violence, the Children of the Forest and the First Men fought one another to a standstill. The two races agreed to peaceful coexistence and signed the pact on the Isle of Faces in God's Eye Lake, granting the open lands to humanity and the forests to the children. The pact lasted for 2,000 years before the enigmatic White Walkers invaded from the uttermost north, bringing death and destruction to both races. The Children of the Forest allied with the First Men to drive back the White Walkers in the War for the Dawn 8,000 years ago. After the defeat of the others, the children, much reduced in number, are said to have helped Bran the Builder raise the wall with their powerful magics to prevent the White Walkers' return. The Children of the Forest never had a large population to begin with, and they took heavy losses in the struggle against the White Walkers, from which they never truly recovered. Over the following centuries they gradually declined throughout Westeros, until they had all but disappeared by the time the Undulls invaded Westeros 6,000 years ago. The few that remained were hunted or driven off by the Undulls during their conquest of the continent, believing their magic to be an abomination to their faith of the Seven. The Undulls cut down the sacred heart trees in the south, except on the Isle of Faces, but the first men of the north withstood their advance, and continued their worship of the old gods centered around the remaining heart trees there. The handful of children that survived the slaughter were said to have fled to the far north, beyond the wall, where the Undulls would never follow them. By the time that Aegon I Targaryen conquered and united the seven kingdoms of Westeros 300 years ago, there had been no contact with the children of the forest for thousands of years ever since. According to the knowledge of the Maesters, the children are either extinct or never existed in the first place and are a purely mythical race. This is disputed by the people of the north, who hold that they inherited their worship of the old gods from the children of the forest, who were real and have long since departed the realms of men. Secretly, a handful of the children actually did survive in the lands beyond the wall, unseen even by the wildlings, hiding in vast underground caverns. Giants are a non-human race considered to be a legend by the inhabitants of the seven kingdoms south of the wall. However, giants do actually exist in the furthest north beyond the wall, and have had some interactions with the human wildlings. This is in contrast with both the children of the forest and the White Walkers, which even the wildlings claim to have not seen in thousands of years. Naga is the legendary first sea dragon in the culture of the Iron Islands. According to legend, the mythical Grey King, having been blessed by the drowned god, slew Naga on the shores of Old Wyke, then used her bones to build his hall and her fire to warm it. The Free Folk is the name used to refer to themselves by the people who live in the lands beyond the wall, still on the continent of Westeros but beyond the northern border of the Seven Kingdoms. The name they employ makes reference to their society, which recognizes no political authority and no claim of ownership over the land. The people of the Seven Kingdoms refer to the Free Folk derogatorily as wildlings. The term wildlings is sometimes also employed to refer to the members of the hill tribes of the Vale that defy the rule of House Arryn, but out of context the term is usually understood to refer to the peoples living beyond the wall. The Free Folk are descended from the first men, as are the inhabitants of the north. They were, essentially, the people unlucky enough to be living north of the wall when it was constructed 8,000 years ago. Besides this shared ethnic heritage, their common descent means that there are also many cultural similarities between the wildlings and the northerners. The wildlings are much closer in lifestyle and habits to how the first men lived thousands of years ago, as the north has come under some cultural influence from their Undull neighbors who invaded southern Westeros 6,000 years ago, and particularly since the Seven Kingdoms were united into a single realm by the Targaryen conquest 300 years ago. Over the ages, the people of the Seven Kingdoms to the south had largely forgotten why the wall was constructed in the first place and came to believe that it exists to protect the realm from the wildlings, whom they regard as primitive savages and barbarians. However, the Night's Watch knows it was originally constructed to defend against the possible return of the near-mythical White Walkers. Since the White Walkers did not return for the past 8,000 years, the Night's Watch has mostly shifted its focus to preventing the wildlings from crossing south of the wall, and sending out patrols into the wilderness to keep track of wildling movements. The shift of focus also reduced the Night's Watch from a band of honorable warriors into largely a dumping ground for exiled criminals. Culture. The Free Folk consist of a wide variety of many fractious tribes and village dwellers, some reasonably refined, others savage and hostile. Different wildling factions have very different cultures and practices, and may speak different languages. They spend much of their time fighting one another over petty squabbles, aside from the times when they are unified by a king beyond the wall, as they are now under Mance Rayder. The Free Folk worship the old gods of the forest, like their distant cousins in the north. Even in the lands of House Stark, there are some followers of the faith of the Seven, often southern noblewomen who come to the north to secure marriage alliances. Beyond the wall, however, the old gods are the only gods that are worshipped. Women also partake in raids south of the wall along with their male counterparts. These women warriors are known as spearwives. A major difference between the Free Folk and the feudal society of the Seven Kingdoms south of the wall is that they do not recognize a class of hereditary nobility in their society. They take great pride in their free status, and only follow leaders who they choose to lead them. While in certain times the clans will unite behind a king, beyond the wall the title and position are not hereditary, as the free folk will follow no man simply because of who his father was. The free folk will follow a king beyond the wall into battle, but they do not perform ceremonies of submission such as kneeling in front of him or referring to him as your grace. They call the people of the feudal Seven Kingdoms kneelers, because they physically kneel to men who they didn't choose to rule over them. There is no social stratification between highborn lords and lowborn smallfolk among the free folk. The other side of this is that without established lords, the wildlings are so free that they don't really have established and enforced laws. A man keeps what he can take, and continues to hold what he can defend. This is somewhat more brutal and chaotic than the feudal society of the Seven Kingdoms, but in some respects their society is more politically egalitarian. The wildlings do not bury their dead, but burn them. This has nothing to do with religion, it is simply done to prevent the White Walkers from resurrecting the deceased as whites. If no fire is available, they will at least try to decapitate or dismember the corpse so it won't make a very useful white. Clans. At the time of the War of the Five Kings, the free folk are divided into about 90 different clans or tribes, some of which have long been bitter enemies with each other. Normally they are politically divided, but have united under the current king beyond the wall Mance Rayder for the common goal of forcing their way south of the wall before the next winter comes, which will bring the White Walkers with it. Some of these groups are socially and culturally very different. While many do understand the common tongue of the Undulls south of the wall, according to Mance the clans in his army speak 7 different languages, including the common tongue. Otherwise they speak the old tongue of the First Men, and its several variants. Some of these clans or groups include numerous clans from the vast haunted forest, immediately north of the wall but east of the Frostfang Mountains. These tend to be semi-nomadic hunters and homesteaders, though some of them form villages of their own. White Tree community of wildlings. Craster's Keep, a small homestead maintained by Craster and his many daughter wives. The then Hornfoots, Ice River Clan's cave people. The non-human race of giants who live beyond the wall has also allied itself with Mance Rayder and now marches in his wildling army. Loosely speaking, they may thus be considered part of the wildlings, though the inhabitants of the Seven Kingdoms generally use the term to refer to specifically the human clans living beyond the wall. Of course, this is because until quite recently, those living south of the wall had thought giants were entirely mythical creatures, and were unaware that they actually existed in the far northern lands beyond the wall. The others are a race of humanoids originating in the far north of the continent of Westeros, beyond even the land of always winter beyond the wall. They are considered mythical by most of the people of Westeros. The wildlings call them White Walkers. Despite what is thought, they are not dead. History. According to legend, the others first appeared approximately 8,000 years ago out of the uttermost north. At this time peace reigned in Westeros due to the pact between the Children of the Forest and the First Men, and they were unprepared for the scale of the invasion. The others' arrival was preceded by a winter that lasted a generation and a period of darkness known as the Long Night, although it is unclear if this was a literal period of darkness lasting years or merely an artistic term. The others overran much of Westeros and proved to be almost unbeatable in combat, able to resurrect fallen enemies and even dead animals as whites to serve them as utterly loyal foot soldiers. The First Men and their allies were pushed back over a long and grueling war. Salvation only came with the discovery that obsidian, also called dragonglass, could slay the others, and with the arrival of a mighty hero to lead the war. This hero is known in the East as Azor Ahai and was said to wield a sword of fire, called Lightbringer. In the War for the Dawn, Azai led the crusade that turned back the others and saw them banished from Westeros and back into the uttermost north. After the war was concluded, Brandon Stark built a huge wall of ice to prevent the others coming south again, and founded the Sworn Brotherhood of the Night's Watch to keep guard against this eventuality. Brandon also established the Castle of Winterfell and became the first king in the north. The Children of the Forest placed spells within the wall which were said to prevent the others from passing under or over it by any means. After the War for the Dawn was concluded, the already small numbers of children slowly declined until they had all disappeared around the time of the Undull invasion. Over time, the threat of the others receded and they came to be regarded as either just legends or a real race long since rendered extinct. However, the Night's Watch remained in place, although it now considered its job to be stopping the wildlings from crossing into the Seven Kingdoms and causing mayhem there. Starting several years before the War of the Five Kings, the northernmost wildling tribes and the rarely seen giants of the furthermost north began to suffer attacks from an unknown agency. Unable to stand against these forces, they began moving south in ever greater numbers. The king beyond the wall, Mance Rayder, began gathering these forces into one host. Once it became clear the unknown attackers were the others, returning after millennia, Mance realized that the wildlings could only survive by taking refuge south of the wall. Aware that the Night's Watch would not listen to reason, Mance planned a massive assault on the wall. He had also taken possession of a device known as the Horn of Winter, which according to legend could shatter the wall. He was unwilling to do this since it would also allow the others to follow them into the Seven Kingdoms, but if there was no other way of breaching the wall he was prepared to employ it. Motives and beliefs. The others speak a language alien to the people of Westeros called Scroth, and no communication has been possible with them. The others' motives thus remain completely unknown at this time. According to the Red Priestess Melisandre of Ashai, the others are the servants of a deity called the Great Other, the god of darkness, ice and death who is locked in eternal warfare with R'hllor, the god of light, fire and life. Balerion, also known as the Black Dread. Written by King Aegon I Targaryen, King Maegor I Targaryen and King Viserys I Targaryen. Born before 114 BC, died in 94 AC of old age. Vhagar. Written by Queen Visenya Targaryen until her death. Later written by Lady Lena Velaryon, and shortly after her death claimed by Prince Aemon Targaryen. Vhagar was born in 51 BC and died in 130 AC, during the Dance of the Dragons. Meraxes. Written by Queen Rhaenys Targaryen. Born on Dragonstone prior to the War of Conquest. Died during the reign of Aegon I in Dorne. Post-War of Conquest. Eryx. Written by Prince Lucerys Velaryon. Born after the War of Conquest. Died in 129 AC, at Shipbreaker Bay. The Cannibal. A wild dragon, never ridden. Known to feast on other dragon carcasses. Caraxes called the Blood Wyrm. Written by Prince Daemon Targaryen. Born after the War of Conquest. Died in 130 AC during the Dance of the Dragons. Dreamfire. Written by Princess Rhaena Targaryen, and later by Princess Helaena Targaryen. Born after the War of Conquest. Died during the Dance of the Dragons in 130 AC, during riots in King's Landing. A House Targaryen dragon is unleashed on the battlefield. Grey Ghost. A wild dragon, never ridden. Died in 130 AC when attacked by Sunfire. Maleys called the Red Queen. Ridden by Princess Rhaenys Targaryen. Born after the War of Conquest. Died in 129 AC, during the Dance of the Dragons. Moondancer. Ridden by Lady Baela Targaryen. A she-dragon. Born after the War of Conquest. Died in 130 AC. Morgul. Bound to Princess Jaehaera Targaryen. Born after the War of Conquest, presumably during the reign of King Viserys I Targaryen, 23 died during the riots in King's Landing in 130 AC. Mourning. Hatched by and bound to Lady Rhaena Targaryen. Born late during the Dance of the Dragons. Sea Smoke. Ridden by Ser Laenor Velaryon, and later by Addam Velaryon. Born after the War of Conquest. Died in 130 AC. Sheepstealer. A wild dragon, eventually ridden by Nettles. Born after the War of Conquest. Shrikos. Bound to Prince Jaehaerys Targaryen. Born after the conquest, presumably during the reign of King Viserys I Targaryen. Died during the riots in King's Landing in 130 AC. Three Dragons Destroy a Castle. By Tomasz Jedrzejczyk. Silverwing. Ridden by Queen Alicent Targaryen, and later by Ulf the White. Born after the War of Conquest. Stormcloud. Bound to Prince Aegon the Younger. Born after the War of Conquest. Ridden only once in 129 AC. Died a few hours later. Sunfire, also called the Golden. Ridden by King Aegon II Targaryen. Born after the War of Conquest, presumably during the reign of King Viserys I Targaryen. Died during the Dance of the Dragons in 130 AC at Dragonstone. Syrax. Written by Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen. Born during the reign of King Jaehaerys I Targaryen, died during riots in King's Landing in 130 AC. Targaryen als called the Blue Queen. Written by Prince Daeron Targaryen. A she-dragon. Born after the War of Conquest. Died during the Dance of the Dragons in 130 AC. Tyraxes. Written by Prince Joffrey Valerion. Born after the War of Conquest. Died in 130 AC, during riots in King's Landing. Vermax. Written by Prince Jacaerys Valerion. Born after the War of Conquest. Died in 130 AC. Vermithor, also called the Bronze Fury. Written by King Jaehaerys I Targaryen and later by Hugh Hammer. Born after the War of Conquest. Died in 130 AC, during the Dance of the Dragons at Tumbleton. The last living dragon. Born and died during the reign of King Aegon III Targaryen. Was once seen by Ser Arlen of Pennytree when he was still a boy. It was not really combat-worthy. Of unknown or uncertain chronology. Uryx, according to legend, slain by Serwyn and probably mythological, as it would have existed centuries before the arrival of the Targaryens. Known dragon eggs. Aegon V's egg white and green swirls. Aemon Targaryen's egg known to exist, but so far undescribed. Aerion Targaryen's egg gold and silver, with veins of fiery colors. Ambrose Butterwell's egg red, with golden flecks and black whorls. Euron Greyjoy's egg. Euron claimed he threw it into the sea. Hatched, black as the midnight sea, alive with scarlet ripples and swirls. Hatched deep green with burnished bronze flecks. Hatched colored pale cream, streaked with gold. A green seer is the name for the wise men of the children of the forest who had magical abilities that included power over nature and prophetic visions. Green seers had the green sight and were wargs as well. The first men believed that they were responsible for carving the faces into weirwood trees, and stories describe the green seers seeing through the faces of their weirwoods, influencing animal and plant life. As the tales go, they used their power to shatter the arm of Dorne into the island chain of the Stepstones. 1 in 1,000 men is born a skin changer, and 1 skin changer in 1,000 is born a green seer. It is also known that humans can be born green seers just as they are born wargs. The relationship between the green seers of the children of the forest and the Order of Green Men who protect the Isle of Faces in the God's Eye has not been specified. There is one green seer left in the world, the last green seer. A skin changer is a person with the ability to enter the mind of an animal and control its actions. It is much easier for a skin changer to do so if a bond exists between the two parties. A skin changer able to enter the mind of a wolf or dog is known as a warg. The interaction between the skin changer's and animal's mind will influence both personalities, with detrimental effects to the human if the animal's influence is not fought. As yet, there has only been one known incidence of a skin changer entering another human's mind, and only a simple-minded one at that. This incidence was particularly traumatic to the person involved and difficult for the skin changer. Such an event proves to be a moral and ethical dilemma. An untrained skin changer may unconsciously enter the mind of an animal, especially while sleeping, particularly if a bond exists. It is extremely traumatic if an animal is killed while its mind is inhabited by a skin changer. If a skin changer is killed while inhabiting a creature, a part of his consciousness will remain in the creature. Much fear and superstition exists around skin changers, with many mistakenly believing them to be shapeshifters. It is said the greatest of the skin changers were the green seers, who amongst many other things were also wargs. The greatest amongst them could wear the skin of any beast. 1 man in 1,000 is born a skin changer, and 1 skin changer in 1,000 could be a green seer. Nature of the beasts. Dogs are easy to bond with because they are so much like humans and trusting. It becomes easier with time to enter one. Wolves are harder. One has to forge a lasting bond, much like a marriage. A man might befriend a wolf, even break a wolf, but no man could truly tame a wolf. Birds are very tempting, but a warg may soon lose contact to the mundane things of earth, and want only to fly. Cats are cruel and vain beasts and can't be easily controlled, only forced. Elk and deer are prey. Wear their skins too long, and even the bravest man becomes a coward. An unwritten code of ethics for wildling skin changers forbids them to eat of human meat, to mate as wolf with wolf, To seize the body of another man, this is the worst abomination. Second life. A skin changer can experience many deaths while in another body. It is only when the person's human body dies that the true death occurs. It is possible for the warg to live a type of second life, a much simpler life inside the mind of an animal he controls. In the second life, the skin changer's memory slowly fades until nothing of the man is left and only the beast remains. Known skin changers. There have been few known skin changers in modern times, with most people associating them with the legends of the children of the forest, particularly the Greenseers. Wildlings. Gavin Greywolf, legendary, a first man skin changer defeated by the Kings of Winter in the Savage War of the Wolves. The Warg King, defeated by the Starks in a war for Sea Dragon Point. The Warg King was a monarch and a skin changer in what is now the North after the Long Night. His given name is unknown. History. Documents of the Night Fort indicate that the Warg King ruled Sea Dragon Point. He was allied with the Children of the Forest, but they were defeated by the Kings of Winter of House Stark. The Starks killed his sons, beasts, and Greenseers, but took his daughters as prizes. History of the Seven Kingdoms Part 1. History of the Seven Kingdoms. About the year 205, Old Lord Dondarrion and Lord Caron burned out the Vulture King, who may have been a Blackmont, out of the Red Mountains. There were some 800 knights and nearly 4,000 foot with them. The roads during King Aerys I's reign were not so safe as they were under his father, Daeron the Good. Roughly around 210, House Stark was in a difficult situation, with the current lord of the house slowly succumbing to wounds he received fighting the Ironborn. Lady Stark and 4 Stark widows struggled over who would succeed him. There were a number of potential heirs with some 10 Stark children about. The Wars of Conquest. Aegon Targaryen and his sisters Visenya and Rhaenys unleashed 3 dragons on the 7 kingdoms of old. The King Loren of the Rock and King Mern of the Reach joined together to throw out the Targaryen invaders. They flew 600 banners with 5,000 mounted knights and 10 times that in free riders and men-at-arms. The Targaryens had perhaps an army the fifth the size of that of the 2 kings, or so chroniclers say, and most of those were conscripts from the last king they had slain, loyalty unsure. The hosts met on the plains of the Reach amidst fields of wheat ripe for harvest. The charge of the 2 kings broke the Targaryen army, but Aegon and his sisters joined the battle with their dragons. It was the only time the 3 dragons were on the field of battle together. Nearly 4,000 men burned on the field of fire, among them Mern of the Reach. It was later said that their swords melted in their hands. Loren of the Rock escaped and pledged his fealty. Aegon the Conqueror first landed and made a wood and earth fort at the site that would later become the royal seat King's Landing. When Aegon slew Black Heron, Heron's brother was Lord Commander of the Night's Watch and had 10,000 swords at his command, but he did not march. The last king of the North who bent the knee to Aegon the Conqueror was Torrhen Stark. He chose to swear fealty rather than give battle. Aegon the Conqueror granted the castle and lands of the old Storm Kings to one of his commanders, Orys, who was rumored to be his bastard brother. Orys slew the last Storm King, Argilac the Arrogant, and married his daughter. Taking her with the castle and lands, he also took the words of the Storm Kings, but his last name was his own. During the Wars of Conquest, the Riverlands belonged to Harren the Black, King of the Isles. Harren the Black was a vain and bloody tyrant, little loved. When Aegon the Conqueror threatened, many of his lords deserted him to join Aegon's host. Harren the Black and his line died in the burning of Harrenhal by Aegon the Conqueror. Aegon raised Lord Edmund Tully to overlordship of the Trident, requiring all other lords to swear fealty to him. Harlan Tyrell, steward to King Mern, surrendered Highgarden to Aegon after the death of the king, who was last of his line. Aegon granted him the castle and dominion over the Reach. Lord Vicon Greyjoy of Pike was chosen by the surviving Ironborn lords to have primacy over them after Aegon conquered them. Dorne was never conquered by Aegon the Conqueror. Torrhen Stark gave up his crown to Aegon the Conqueror when he bent the knee. What became of the crown afterwards is unknown. Harren the Black had taken up residence in the completed Harrenhal on the very day news reached him of the landing of Aegon the Conqueror. Aegon the Conqueror had knelt to pray in Dragonstone's sept the night before he sailed. There are claims that Harren the Black and his sons haunt the cellars of the Wailing Tower, even though they died in the Kingspire Tower. It's said that Aegon the Conqueror received the submission of King Torrhen Stark on the south bank of the Red Fork in the Riverlands, at the place where the river bends to flow southeastwards. Aegon the Conqueror had fewer than 1,600 men with him when he and his sisters set out to conquer the Seven Kingdoms. Queen Visenya was sent by her brother Aegon to receive the homage of the lords of Crackclaw Point following the death of Harren the Black. They bent the knee to her without qualm, and in return she promised them that they would be direct vassals of the Targaryens. Aegon the Conqueror dated the beginning of his reign from the day the High Septon anointed him as king in Oldtown. Since then it has been traditional for the High Septon to give their blessing to every king. When news arrived in Oldtown of the landing of Aegon and his sisters, the High Septon fasted and prayed for 7 days and nights under the dome of the starry September in Oldtown. He then announced that the faith would not oppose the Targaryens, because the crone had shown him that to do so would mean the destruction of Oldtown in Dragonflame. Lord Hightower, a pious man, kept his forces at Oldtown and would later freely open his gates to Aegon when he came to be anointed by the High Septon. There were Targaryens on Dragonstone for about 2 centuries after the Doom before invading Westeros. Dorne avoided being ruled by Aegon the Conqueror by refusing to assemble huge armies to be burned by dragons as happened to the army of the Two Kings, nor did they hide in their castles as Harren the Black and his sons did. They fled before the dragons instead and returned to harass and murder when they could. The name of the Seven Kingdoms comes from the realms that existed at the time of the conquest, being the Kingdom of the North, the Kingdom of the Rock, the Kingdom of the Reach, the Kingdom of Mountain and Vale, the realm of the Storm King, the Kingdom of the Iron Islands and the Riverlands, and the Kingdom of Dorne. The Dance of the Dragons. Brother fought sister during the Dance of the Dragons. Ser Erryk and Ser Erryk were twin brothers who served in the Kingsguard. They took opposite sides in the contest and died fighting one another. The Kingsguard split during the Dance of the Dragons, some supporting Aegon II and others supporting Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra Targaryen was the daughter of Viserys I and mother to Aegon III the Dragonbane and Viserys II, but died a traitor's death all the same. Aegon III's mother Rhaenyra contested her young brother King Aegon II for the throne. Aegon III lived to see Rhaenyra devoured by his uncle's dragon, and grew to have a deep fear of dragons. The twins Ser Erryk and Ser Erryk died with tears on their cheeks after each had given the other a mortal wound. Ser Criston Cole, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard at the time of the death of Viserys I, convinced his son Aegon II to claim the rule of the Seven Kingdoms as his father lay dying. This led to the war between Aegon and his elder sister Rhaenyra, whom Viserys had long groomed as his successor. Ser Criston became known as the Kingmaker, and ultimately died because of his actions. It was later claimed that he acted from ambition, or to defend ancient undull custom giving precedence to sons over daughters, or because he had once had an affair with Rhaenyra until she spurned him. Both sides used dragons during the Civil War. Many of these dragons seem to have been killed in the process. Rhaenyra Targaryen was the firstborn child of Viserys I, and was almost 10 years older than her next sibling, Aegon II. She was Viserys' only living child by his first wife of House Arryn. When her second brother died, Viserys began to treat her as his heir. Many flocked to her, looking for favor. After her mother's death, Viserys remarried. His second wife, a Hightower, promptly gave him 3 healthy sons and a daughter in rapid succession. The Conquest of Dorne. Daeron the young dragon conquered Dorne at 14. The conquest of Dorne lasted a summer. The boy king spent 10,000 men taking Dorne, and 50,000 trying to hold it. Daeron I died at the age of 18. King Daeron I, the young dragon, was the first to observe that there were 3 types of Dornishmen: salty Dornishmen, sandy Dornishmen, and stony Dornishmen. King Daeron I was very brave in battle. The young dragon never won 3 battles in a day. King Daeron I wrote Conquest of Dorne with elegant simplicity. Baelor the Blessed walked the Boneway barefoot to make peace with Dorne and rescued the Dragon Knight from a snake pit. Legend says the vipers refused to strike him because he was so pure and holy, but the truth is that he was bitten 100 times and should have died from it. Some say that he was deranged by the venom. After the submission of Sunspear, the young dragon left the Lord of Highgarden to rule Dorne for him. He moved with his train from one keep to the next, chasing rebels and keeping the knees of the Dornishmen bent. It was his custom to turn the lords of the keeps he stayed in out of their chambers, to sleep in their place. One night, finding himself in a bed with a heavy velvet canopy, he pulled a sash near the pillows to summon a wench. When he did so, the canopy opened and 100 red scorpions fell upon him. His death led to rebellion throughout Dorne, and in a fortnight all the young dragon had won was undone. When the young dragon was killed, a Kingsguard knight named Ser Oliver Oakheart, known as the Green Oak, died at his side. King Daeron wrote in his Conquest of Dorne that the favorite weapons of the Dornishmen are the spear and the sun, but that the latter was by the deadlier. Dorne is the least populous of the Seven Kingdoms, though many outside of this do not realize it because of Daeron I's account of his conquest of Dorne, in which he inflated the numbers of the enemy to glorify his victories, and the princes of Dorne have been happy to allow the rest of the realm to believe this. The Blackfyre Pretenders. Daemon Blackfyre died for his treason, as did Grand Maester Hareth and Rhaenyra Targaryen. 407. Aerys originally acted as if Robert was nothing but a mere outlaw lord, but Robert Baratheon and his allies were the greatest threat to House Targaryen since Daemon Blackfyre. Aegon IV legitimized all his bastards on his deathbed, and the pain, grief, war, and murder that wrought lasted 5 generations because of the Blackfyre Pretenders. It only ended when Ser Barristan the Bold slew the last of them, Meleys the Monstrous, in single combat on the Stepstones during the War of the Ninepenny Kings. Lord Bloodraven lost an eye to Bittersteel on the Redgrass Field. The Blackfyre Rebellion ended in the Battle of the Redgrass Field in 196. All 3 of Ser Eustace Oscary's sons died at the end of the Blackfyre Rebellion in 196, on the Redgrass Field. Edwin and Harold were knights, while Adam was a squire. Roger of Pennytree, squire and nephew to Ser Arlen of Pennytree, was young when he died on the Redgrass Field. He was killed by Lord Gorman Peake, whose arms were 3 black castles on an orange field. Adam Oscary was killed by a knight wearing the arms of House Smallwood, who took off the boy's arm with an axe. Daemon Blackfyre reversed the colors of the Targaryen arms for his own banner, as many bastards did. In the years following his rebellion, asking if someone had followed the Red Dragon or the Black was considered a dangerous question. Daemon Blackfyre was also known as Daemon the Pretender. Ser Arlen of Pennytree fought in Lord Hayford's host at the Redgrass Field. Lord Hayford was a noted loyalist who was appointed hand by King Daeron II just before the Redgrass Field, as Lord Butterwell had done such a terrible job in that office that some questioned his loyalty. Lord Hayford was killed during the battle. The Redgrass Field was named for all the blood that shed on it during the great battle. Aegon for the Unworthy gave his Valyrian steel sword, Blackfyre, which had been carried by Aegon the Conqueror and all the Targaryen kings after him, to his bastard Daemon when he knighted him at the age of 12, instead of to his heir Daeron. Talk of Daemon becoming Aegon's heir began after this point. Daemon was his son by one of his cousins, one of the princesses in the Maiden-Vault who were sisters to King Baelor the Blessed. It is said that 10,000 men died on the Redgrass Field. No one could stand against Daemon Blackfyre during the bat. He broke Lord Aaron's van, slaying the Knight of 9 Stars and Wild Will Waynwood, then fought Ser Gawain Corbray of the Kingsguard. The two fought for nearly an hour, their Valyrian steel swords Blackfyre and Lady Forlorn shrieking as they clashed, until Daemon clove through Corbray's helm and blinded him with his own blood, as he dismounted to see to his fallen foe and sending Redtusk to conduct him safely to the rear. Bloodraven and his raven's teeth gained the Weeping Ridge. From 300 yards away, Bloodraven and his company used longbows to slay the eldest of Daemon's twin sons, Aegon, and then Daemon himself after piercing him with 7 arrows. The younger twin, Aemon, took up Blackfyre, only to die in the same fashion. The rebels routed following the death of Daemon and his sons, but the rout was turned by Bittersteel, who led a mad charge. Bittersteel and Bloodraven fought a battle second only to that of Blackfyre and Corbray. Finally, the battle was ended when Baelor Breakspear charged the rebel rear, his Dornishmen and Stormlords striking a hammer blow that shattered the enemy. Had Daemon Blackfyre won on the Redgrass Field, the road to King's Landing would have been open and undefended. Bittersteel and Daemon Blackfyre's 5 surviving sons fled to Tyrosh, where they plotted their return. In the aftermath of the Blackfyre Rebellion, wherein House Oscary of Standfast supported Daemon Blackfyre while House Weber supported King Daeron, the Oscarys were stripped of control over the Chequy Water, which was granted to House Weber, who also gained other rights associated with Watts Wood. Furthermore, Ser Eustace Oscary's wife killed herself when she learned that her daughter and only surviving child, Alysanne, was to be made a hostage in King's Landing. Demon Blackfire promised Coldmoat to Ser Eustace Oscary. Those who followed King Daron called themselves loyalists. Demon Blackfire was known as the king who bore the sword by his followers, who also claimed that he was the rightful king. Following Blackfire's rebellion, many of those who followed him drew away from the public eye, in part because Lord Bloodraven and his raven's teeth put the fear in them. Half the realm rose for the Black Dragon, and the other half for the Red. Fireball was one of the champions who followed Demon Blackfire, but he was slain on the eve of battle. A famous knight of the Reach, Ser Quentin Ball, had been master-at-arms in the Red Keep and had been all but promised a place in the Kingsguard by Aegon IV, a promise Daron the Good chose not to honor. This led Fireball to becoming one of the men who urged Blackfire to his rebellion. Hightower, Oakhart, Tarbeck, and Butterwell had a foot in both camps, so did not lend either side their full strength. Manfred Lothston betrayed Demon Blackfire, which may have been a pivotal factor in his defeat and death. Lord Bracken was delayed by storms on the Narrow Sea, which kept him from arriving with Myrish crossbowmen to support Demon Blackfire. Quickfinger, a Blackfire loyalist, was caught with stolen dragon's eggs during Blackfire's rebellion. Daron II was known as Daron the Falseborn to those who followed the Blackfires, no doubt alluding to the rumors that Daron was the son of Aegon Ivy's brother, Aemon the Dragon Knight. King Daron pardoned those who rebelled against him, so long as they bent the knee and gave over a hostage. Demon Blackfire was a great warrior, and some claimed that with Blackfire in his hand no knight who ever lived could have matched him, even Ulrich Dane with Dawn or Aemon the Dragon Knight with Dark Sister. He was tall and powerful, and no more pious than he had to be. King Daron marrying his sister Daenerys to the Prince of Dorne, when she is said to have loved Demon Blackfire, was one of several causes of Blackfire's rebellion. Great knights flocked to Demon Blackfire's banner. Robb Rayne, Gareth the Grey, Ser Aubrey Ambrose, Lord Gorman Peake, Black Byron Flowers, Redtusk, Fireball, and Bittersteel, who seems to have been considered the greatest of all. Ser Brynden Tully won renown fighting the Ninepenny Kings. The Ebon Prince was involved in the War of the Ninepenny Kings, probably as one of the aggressors claiming a crown. Tensions were high in 211 to 212, as there were those who openly incited the king's subjects to rise against him in support of the Blackfires and against his hand, Brynden Rivers. Some who spoke treason were executed by loyal lords. Demon II Blackfire, the second Blackfire pretender, disguised himself as a hedge knight called John the Fiddler. His arms were a golden engrailed cross, with a golden fiddle in the first and third quarter, and a golden sword in the other quarters. He travelled in company with Lord Alan Cockshaw and Lord Gorman Peake to a wedding tourney at Lord Butterwell's seat of Whitewalls, which was to serve as a gathering place for his supporters. Lord Gorman Peake lost 2 of the 3 castles he ruled, due to having supported Demon Blackfire. He retained only Starpike. Because of this, he led the conspiracy that brought Demon Blackfire from across the Narrow Sea. Lord Butterwell was Master of Coin when Aegon IV sat the throne, and then was made hand for a time by Daron II, but not for long. During the First Blackfire Rebellion, his second son fought with the rebels, his eldest with the king, while he kept out of the fighting. Lord Ambrose Butterwell's tourney in the Reign of Aerys I featured the dragon's egg his grandfather received from Aegon IV as the champion's prize. The 7 kingdoms were seemingly left to fend for themselves against Lord Dagon Greyjoy and his ironborn reavers troubling all the lands on the western coast. As King Aerys I ignored the trouble so he could be closeted with his books, while Prince Regal was said to be so mad as to dance naked in the halls of the Red Keep, and Prince Mikar so angry at his brother and his advisers that he sat and brooded at Summerhall. Some blamed Lord Bloodraven, the Hand of the King, for this state of affairs, while others claimed his attention was focused on Tyrosh, where the sons of Demon Blackfire and Bittersteel plotted another attempt to seize the Iron Throne. TMK 664. Armand Caswell, Lord of Bitterbridge, was among those who fought for King Daron II against Demon Blackfire. In one battle, his banner-bearer was killed and he was allegedly saved by Ser Kyle, the Cat of Misty Moor. Lord Costane fought in the left Battle of Demon's Host at the Redgrass Field. Lord Shawnee fought on the right with Bittersteel at the Battle of the Redgrass Field, and was nearly killed there. Ser Quentin Ball was called Fireball for his hot temper and red hair. He had been promised a place in the Kingsguard by Aegon the Unworthy, and forced his wife to become a silent sister so he could take up the honor. By the time a place was open, however, It was Aegon's son Daeron who ruled, and he preferred to give the cloak to another man, Ser Willem Wild. This was the reason why he supported Daemon Blackfyre. Fireball would go on to help convince Daemon Blackfyre to claim the crown, and rescued him when King Daeron sent the Kingsguard to arrest him. He slew Lord Leff Ord at the gates of Lannisport and sent Lord Lannister, the Grey Lion, fleeing. At the crossing of the Mander, he slew Lady Penrose's son one by one, but let the youngest live as a kindness. Fireball was struck down by a nameless archer's arrow as he dismounted at a stream for a drink of water. The old ox, Ser Buford Bulwer, is claimed to have killed 40 men at the Redgrass Field. This number is dubious, however. Daemon II's attempt to win the Iron Throne lacked the support of Bittersteel, despite his dream that he would hatch a dragon from an egg, much as he had dreamed of his elder brother's dead. Daemon II dreamed that Ser Duncan the Tall would be a knight in his Kingsguard. Daemon II was 7 when his elder brothers, Aemon and Aegon, died at the age of 12 at the Redgrass Field. Lord Sunderland attended Lord Butterwell's wedding in the reign of Aerys I. He had fought for the Black Dragon during Daemon Blackfyre's rebellion. Lord Butterwell's sons fought on both sides during the First Blackfyre Rebellion. Ser Glendon Ball, also called Flowers, Ser Argrave the Defiant of Nunny, Ser Duncan the Tall, as the Gallows Knight, Lord Joffrey Caswell, Ser Kyle, the Cat of Misty Moor, Ser Uther Underleaf, Ser Eden Risley, Lord Smallwood's nephew, Ser Adam Fry, Lord Cockshaw, Ser John the Fiddler, Ser Tomard Heddle, Ser Clarence Charlton, and Ser Galtry the Green were among the knights who rode at Butterwell's tourney. Daemon Blackfyre struck his own coinage during his rebellion. Possession of the coins was considered treasonous. It said that Glendon Ball, the Knight of Pussawillows, was the son of a camp follower named Jenny. She was called Penny Jenny, and then Redgrass Jenny for all the men it's claimed she bedded before the battle. There's little doubt Fireball did sleep with her at some point, but the question of Glendon's paternity is open. Glendon was raised with his sister at a brothel called the Pussawillows. Ser Uther Underleaf was paid to try and kill Ser Duncan the Tall in the lists by Lord Alan Cockshaw. The price was 6 gold dragons, and 4 more when Ser Duncan was declared dead. Ser Glendon Ball was offered a place at Starpike by Lord Peake if he deliberately lost to John the Fiddler, Daemon Blackfyre, as part of Peake's plan to convince the realm of Daemon's worthiness as a successor to his father. When he refused, and the dragon's egg was stolen, Peake deliberately accused him of the theft so as to get him out of the way. The occasion of Lord Butterwell's wedding was used by supporters of the Black Dragon to meet together and secretly plot rebellion against the Iron Throne. Among those who appeared was one of Daemon Blackfyre's sons, in the guise of Ser John the Fiddler. Many of the hostages that King Daeron took from the supporters of the Black Dragon died in King's Landing when the Great Spring Sickness ran rampant. Lord Butterwell's dragon egg was stolen during the wedding tourney, allegedly by a spy of Lord Bloodraven, who supposedly murdered the guards who watched over it. Tomard Heddle claimed that a dying guard blamed Glendon Ball. Alan Cockshaw was obsessed and in love with Daemon II, and dreamed of commanding his Kingsguard, but became jealous when Daemon's eyes turned to Duncan the Tall. Daemon Blackfyre fathered 7 sons. His 3rd son was named Daemon as well. He and Alan Cockshaw spent their childhoods together, suggesting Cockshaw was fostered with Daemon Bittersteel carried off Daemon's surviving sons into exile. Alan Cockshaw drowned in a well after being thrown into it by Ser Duncan the Tall, following his attempt to do the same to Ser Duncan. Ser Maynard Plum, who attended Lord Butterwell's wedding, was obviously a spy for the one-eyed Lord Bloodraven. At one point, Dunk sees him hooded and believes he can only see one eye, until he realizes that was just a brooch. Plum reveals Bloodraven knew a good deal about the plots of Daemon Blackfyre and Lord Peake. Ambrose Butterwell was never a firm supporter of the conspiracy to crown Daemon II, especially when he learned that he had neither the support of Bittersteel nor the sword Blackfyre. The theft of the dragon's egg made him even less inclined to be part of the conspiracy. Black Tom Heddle, who was deeply involved in the conspiracy and had suborned Lord Butterwell's own men against him, was killed by Ser Duncan the Tall in single combat. Lord Fry abandoned the conspiracy immediately when Prince Aegon, son of Prince Meekar, revealed himself to him and Lord Butterwell and claimed he and Ser Duncan were spies for his father. The dragon's egg allegedly taken from Ball's saddle was nothing but a painted stone, as the real dragon's egg had been stolen by persons unknown. Demon Blackfire decided to allow Ser Glendon to defend himself in a trial by combat, and jousted against him. Despite Ball having been beaten and tortured, he defeated Demon, who was dubbed the Brown Dragon for the mud that covered him after he fell to the ground in the lists. As the conspiracy unraveled, many of the wedding guests who had entertained being a part of it fled Whitewalls in the night. An army appeared outside Whitewalls, a host raised at Lord Bloodraven's command. Lord Mutun, Lord Blackwood, Lord Darklyn, and Lady Lothston were among its leaders, and there were Hayfords, Rosbys, Stokeworths, Masseys, the King's sworn swords, 3 of the Kingsguard, and 300 of Bloodraven's Raven's Teeth involved. Bloodraven himself was present. Demon Tooth's attempt to be crowned ended ignominiously when no one was willing to ride against Lord Bloodraven's army. He rode out alone and challenged Bloodraven to single combat, but was simply dragged down from his horse and arrested. One of Lord Verwell's men-at-arms boasted he had been among Bloodraven's spies, but had his throat cut by one of Lord Costain's knights. Ser Maynard Plum vanished from Whitewalls sometime during the night. Ser Roland Crakehall was one of the Kingsguard knights at Whitewalls. Lord Peake was executed by beheading for his treason. His head was displayed with Tom Heddles. Lord Butterwell submitted to Lord Bloodraven's judgment, and lost 9/10 of his wealth and his pride. Whitewalls. Lord Bloodraven intended to pull the castle down and sow the ground in salt, so that it would soon be forgotten. Erstwhile supporters of the Blackfires would make pilgrimages to the Redgrass Field to plant flowers where Demon Blackfire fell. Lord Fry was permitted to depart Whitewalls by Lord Bloodraven, without any apparent loss to himself. There have always been Targaryens who dreamed of things to come, since long before the conquest, and it was no surprise that the same gift appeared among their descendants, such as the Blackfires. Bloodraven believed that Demon Blackfire's dream that a dragon would hatch at Whitewalls came true, but that it was Prince Aegon whom he dreamed of. Bloodraven intended to suggest that King Aerys keep Demon Blackfire as a hostage at the Red Keep as a means of preventing Bittersteel from crowning his brother Haegon. Bloodraven appears to have arranged the theft of the dragon's egg with the help of a troop of dwarf mummers who crept up a privy shaft. The most notable rebellions against the Targaryens came from the Blackfire pretenders. Bittersteel was Ser Igor Rivers, the bastard son of Aegon the Unworthy by a woman of House Bracken. Angry at his lot as a bastard, he was dark-haired, lithe, and hard. He wore a horsehead crest upon his helm, and his arms featured a red stallion with black dragon wings, snorting flame against a golden field. Demon Blackfire was about 26 at the time of his rebellion, Bittersteel 24, and Bloodraven 21. Demon's eldest sons, Aegon and Aemon, were 12. Demon Blackfire rebelled when he did for several reasons. Among them were that he was increasingly resentful of his status as a bastard. Counselors urged him to it, such as Fireball. Mad King Aerys too demanded the heads of Eddard Stark and Robert Baratheon from their guardian, Lord Arryn of the Eyrie. Rather than comply, Lord Arryn raised his banners in revolt. Aerys' queen fled to Dragonstone from King's Landing. Aerys feared that Robert, Eddard Stark's best friend and Lyanna Stark's betrothed, would support Eddard in avenging the murders of his father and brother. He also believed that with Lord Arryn's men surrounding them in the Vale, it would be easier to see them dead. Prince Rhaegar Targaryen died at the hand of Robert Baratheon, fighting at the Ruby Ford of the Trident for the woman he loved. King's Landing was sacked by the Lannisters. Jaime Lannister of the Kingsguard opened Aerys' throat with a golden sword. Rhaegar's wife, the Dornish Princess Elia, and their children were butchered. Daenerys Targaryen was born during a storm 9 months after the flight from Dragonstone. Not long after Robert Baratheon's brother Stannis came with a new-built fleet to the island. By the time Robert's fleet sailed, only Dragonstone remained to the Targaryens of their old realm. The Tyrells, Redwynes, and Darrys fought for the Targaryens, among other houses. Brandon Stark was heir to Winterfell, 20 years old, when he was killed by King Aerys only a few days before he was to marry Catelyn. Tully, Eddard Stark, his brother, married her instead as custom decreed. Lyanna Stark died at 16, betrothed to Robert Baratheon. Eddard Stark remained only a short time with Catelyn Tully before he rode off to war beside Robert Baratheon and Jon Arryn against the Targaryens. The War of the Usurper lasted about a year. Eddard Stark and his companions faced 3 of the Kingsguard at the place where Lyanna was kept. Howland Reed, the crannogman, was present. It was said that Eddard Stark slew the Sword of the Morning single-handedly, but Howland Reed in fact helped him, saving his life. Eddard Stark took Arthur Dayne's sword to Starfall and his sister, Ashera Dayne. Ashera Dayne threw herself from the castle walls. Tywin Lannister presented Robert Baratheon with the bodies of Rhaegar's wife and children. The children were wrapped in a crimson cloak so as to hide the blood. Lord Tywin knew that Robert was aware his throne was not secure while the children lived. But he also knew that Robert considered himself too much of a hero to dirty his own hands with it. Eddard Stark and Robert Baratheon argued over the killing of Rhaegar's family. Eddard Stark fought the final wars in the south, and they were only reconciled by the death of Lyanna. Aerys also killed Lord Rickard Stark. Rhaegar is said to have kidnapped and raped Lyanna Stark. Robert was wounded by Rhaegar Targaryen during their single combat. When the Targaryen host broke, Eddard Stark was given the pursuit. He was the first of Robert's men to reach King's Landing, to find the Lannister lion already raised. The Lannisters appeared before King's Landing with 12,000 men after the defeat of Rhaegar at the Trident. Aerys threw his gates open, only to have the Lannisters sack the city and kill the Targaryens. Jaime Lannister sat the Iron Throne when Eddard Stark arrived at the Red Keep, but he stood. The Darys fought for the Targaryens in the war of the usurper. Aerys Targaryen left a treasury flowing with gold. Tywin Lannister gave knights at King's Landing who fought for the Targaryens the choice of having their heads on spikes or taking the black. Stannis Baratheon held Storm's End through a year of besiegement by the Lords Tyrell and Redwyne. Near the end he and his men were reduced to rats and boot leather. The Rygers, Darys, and Mutons were sworn to Riverrun but took the side of the Targaryens in the war. The Freys brought their levies into the war on Robert's side only well after the Battle of the Trident was won, leading to Lord Walder being known as the late Lord Frey by Hoster Tully. Jason Mallister cut down 3 of Rhaegar Targaryen's bannermen at the Trident. Gregor Clegane was a new-made knight of 17 years at the sack of King's Landing. Some say it was Clegane who dashed Aegon Targaryen against a wall, and it was whispered afterwards that he raped the Princess Elia before putting her to the sword. Barristan Selmy cut down a dozen men, friends of the Baratheons and the Starks, at the Trident. He was wounded nearly to the death, but Robert would not kill a man who kept his vows and fought bravely. Rhaegar brought 40,000 men to the Trident, but no more than a tenth were knights. Eddard Stark with 6 companions faced 3 of the Kingsguard at the Dornish Mountains, before a tower that Rhaegar had been said to have called the Tower of Joy. Only 2 people, Lord Stark and Howland Reed, survived. The sister of Arthur Dayne, Ashera Dayne, threw herself into the sea after Eddard Stark brought her the familial sword Dawn which the Sword of the Morning carried. Lord Rickard Stark and his heir Brandon had gone south with 200 of their best men. None ever returned. In the year of the False Spring, approximately a year or 2 prior to the rebellion, when Eddard Stark was 18, there was a great tourney at Harrenhal which spanned over 10 days. He, Robert Baratheon, and Jon Arryn had come from the Eyrie for it. Many notables came there, including the King and Crown Prince, and Jaime Lannister was named to the Kingsguard on that day. At the tourney in Harrenhal, Rhaegar Targaryen seemed unstoppable and defeated even Ser Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning. Taking the Winter Rose crown for the Queen of Love and Beauty, he revealed his interest in Lyanna Stark by passing his wife, the Princess Elia of Dorne, and setting it in Lyanna's lap. During the siege of Storm's End, Redwyne galleys blockaded the castle from support by the sea. The castle was in dire straits, living off of roots and rats after the dogs, cats, and horses were all slain, when the infamous smuggler Davos glided past the Redwyne cordon in his black-hulled ship crammed with salt fish and onions. It proved enough to keep the garrison going until Eddard Stark lifted the siege. Stannis Baratheon rewarded Davos lands in the Cape of Wrath, a small keep and knighthood. He also decreed that Davos must lose the joint of each finger of his left hand in punishment for his years of smuggling. At Davos' request, Lord Stannis removed the joints himself. After the war was done and Stannis Baratheon had sailed to Dragonstone to secure it, Robert Baratheon gave his brother Dragonstone to hold, presumably as it was tradition under the Targaryens that Dragonstone was held by the heir to the throne, and gave lordship of Storm's End to Renly Baratheon. Aerys Targaryen's last hand was killed in the sack of King's Landing, although he had been appointed only a fortnight earlier. The hand before him had burned to death. The two before them had died landless and penniless in exile. Lord Tywin Lannister was the last hand of the king to depart King's Landing safely. The Hightowers of Old Town were loyal to the Targaryens during the War of the Usurper. The pyromancers made many jars of wildfire for King Aerys too. It was his fancy to shape the jars as fruits. So many full-fledged pyromancers were slain in the sack of King's Landing that the novices that remained were unable to deal with the large numbers of wildfire jars that should have been destroyed before becoming too volatile. Many of the jars of wildfire made for Aerys too were lost, unable to be accounted for, because of the massacres of the sack of King's Landing. Aerys too had at least 4,000 jars of wildfire prepared. Aerys too was known for roasting his enemies over fires with the aid of the pyromancers that he was patron to. Howland Reed had been one of Eddard Stark's staunchest companions during the war against the Targaryens. There are blood ties between Storm's End and the Targaryens, related to marriages some 100 years past between second sons and elder daughters. These ties were used as justification for Robert Baratheon's ascension to the throne after the rebellion. It was Grand Maester Pycelle who convinced Mad King Aerys to open his gates to the Lannisters, which was done over the objections of Lord Varys. He felt the realm needed a new king after Rhaegar's death, and hoped it would have been Tywin, but Eddard Stark moved too quickly and Robert Baratheon was too powerful. Near the end of the war, the Master-at-Arms of Storm's End, Ser Gawain Wild, and 3 others attempted to steal out a postern gate to surrender. Captured by Stannis, he ordered them to be flung from the walls with catapults. Maester Cresson, serving at Storm's End, told Stannis that they might be reduced to eating their own dead. If it were not for Davos Seaworth, the Onion Knight, they might have come to that point. Ser Gawain died in captivity. Davos Seaworth's timely smuggling of supplies to Storm's End took place 16 years before. There is a vision which shows Prince Rhaegar and his wife Elia with their newborn son Aegon. There is a suggestion that Rhaegar has had a prophetic vision and dreams of a promised prince who has the Song of Ice and Fire. He also says that there must be one more, apparently referring to a Targaryen child. Brandon Stark was on his way to Riverrun to wed Catelyn Tully when he heard something about Lyanna, which made him angry enough to go to King's Landing and the Red Keep. There, he shouted aloud for Rhaegar to come out and fight him in a duel to the death. Aerys arrested him and his companions, his squire Ethan Glover, Geoffrey Mallister, Kyle Royce, and the nephew and heir of the Lord of the Eyrie Elbert Arryn, for treason and the plotting the murder of the Crown Prince. Aerys ordered the fathers of the men to come south to answer the charges against their sons. When they did this, they and their sons were murdered without trial. Lord Rickard Stark demanded a trial by combat and Aerys granted the request. Lord Rickard prepared himself as if for combat, only to learn that Aerys chose fire as the champion of his house. To win the trial, Lord Stark would have to survive being roasted in all his armor over a fire. His own son was forced to watch and given the false hope of saving him. He was put in a strangulation device, with a sword a little from his reach. Brandon Stark strangled himself trying to reach it. Jaime Lannister stood at the foot of the Iron Throne as Rickard and Brandon Stark died, and the Lord Commander Ser Gerald Hightower may have been there as well. At Robert's coronation, Ser Jaime Lannister, Grand Maester Pycelle, and Lord Varys were made to kneel before the king to receive his forgiveness for their crimes before he would take them into his service again. The marriage between Jon Arryn and Lysa Tully was hastily arranged and loveless because of Lord Jon's prickly pride and age and Lady Lysa's youth and soiled state from a bastard child she had had aborted at her father's demand. Without the marriage, Lord Tully might not have joined the rebellion. Lord Jon Arryn's gallant cousin, Ser Dennis Arryn, was killed in the Battle of the Bells of Aerys's hands after Lord Tywin Lannister, Lords Merryweather and Connington had been exiled, Lord Chelsted had been dipped in wildfire and burned alive, and Lord Rossart the pyromancer was gutted by the Kingslayer. Lord Rossart was the last of King Aerys's hands, having the position only a fortnight before the sack of King's Landing. He was killed by Ser Jaime Lannister before he went on to kill his king. King Aerys had commanded Ser Jaime Lannister to bring him the heads of all the traitors, especially Lord Tywin's. Lord Roland Crakehall, Ser Ellis Westerling, and others of Lord Tywin's knights burst into the throne room in time to see Ser Jaime's kingslaying. Ser Gregor Clegane and Ser Amory Lorch were scaling the walls of Maegor's Holdfast even as Targaryen loyalists were doing in the Armory and the Serpentine Steps, and Lord Eddard Stark was leading his Northmen through the King's Gate. Princess Elia and her child Aegon were in Maegor's Holdfast. Mace Tyrell has won few battles. His reputation rests on an indecisive victory over Robert Baratheon at Ashford, in a battle largely won by Lord Randall Tarley's van before the main host had arrived. The Siege of Storm's End, where Mace Tyrell actually held the command, dragged on for a year with no result. Lord Rickard Karstark stood with Lord Eddard Stark on the Trident. All of Lord Leicester's sons died in Robert's rebellion, some on one side and some on the other. Babies were butchered in the sack, and old men and children at play as well. More women were raped than could be counted. Lord Eddard Stark won a famous battle at the town of Stony September in the Riverlands. Aerys's men had been hunting Robert, trying to catch him before he could rejoin Eddard. He was wounded and being tended by friends when Lord Connington the Hand took the town with a mighty force and started searching for him from house to house. Before they found him, however, Lord Eddard and Lord Hoster Tully stormed Stony September. Lord Connington fought back fiercely at Stony September, and there was fighting everywhere as the Septons rang all their bells to warn the small folk to lock their doors and hide. Robert came out of hiding and slew 6 men, they say. One of them was Miles Mouton, a famous knight and Rhaegar's former squire. Robert would have slain Connington as well, but the battle never brought them together. The Hand wounded Lord Hoster gravely and killed Ser Dennis Arryn, Lord John Arryn's cousin and the darling of the Vale. When Lord John Connington saw the day was lost, he fled and then was exiled by Aerys for his failure. The battle at Stony September was called the Battle of the Bells, and Lord Robert always said that it was Lord Eddard who won the battle for him. Robert won 3 battles in a single day at Summerhall when Lords Grandison, Caffrin, and Fell sought to join their strength at Summerhall and march on him at Storm's End after he first came home to call his banners. He learned of their plans from an informer, however, and rode at once with all his knights and squires. As the plotters came up on Summerhall one by one, he defeated each in turn. Robert killed Lord Fell in single combat at Summerhall and captured his son Silveraxe. After the battles, he brought Lord Grandison, Lord Caffrin, and Silveraxe back to Storm's End as prisoners. He hung their banners in the hall as trophies, and yet they would sit beneath those banners drinking and feasting with Robert. He later took them hunting, and threw axes with them in the yard, and they became fast friends. Silveraxe became his man. Lord Caffrin died at Ashford Castle, cut down by Randall Tarley while fighting for Robert, and Lord Grandison was wounded on the Trident and died of it a year after. Lord Caffrin's head was sent to Aerys by Lord Tarley. Some say the rot in King Aerys's reign began with Varys, the Master of Whisperers. Lord Stark argued that Jaime Lannister should be stripped of the white cloak of the Kingsguard and sent to the wall, but Robert chose to listen to Lord Arryn's counsel and allowed him to remain a white sword. Aerys originally acted as if Robert was nothing but a mere outlaw lord, but Robert Baratheon and his allies were the greatest threat to House Targaryen since Daemon Blackfyre. Growing frantic, Aerys gracelessly reminded Prince Lewin Martell that Princess Elia was in his power and sent him to take command of 10,000 Dornishmen coming up the King's Road. Jon Darry and Barristan Selmy of the Kingsguard were sent towards to Stony September to rally what they could of Lord Connington's scattered men. Prince Rhaegar returned from the south after the defeat at Stony September and persuaded King Aerys to summon Lord Tywin from Casterly Rock. But the summons went unanswered, making the king even more paranoid about traitors. Varys was always present to point out traitors that he missed. King Aerys had caches of wildfire placed by his alchemists all over King's Landing, from Baelor's Sept to the hovels of Flea Bottom, under stables and storerooms, at all 7 gates, and even in the cellars of the Red Keep itself. He intended to leave nothing but ashes for Robert, and perhaps thought it would make a fitting funeral pyre or a suitable way to transform himself into a dragon. Prince Rhaegar was busy marshalling the royalist army after he returned from the south. Lord Chelstead, the last hand before the pyromancer Rossart, saw what was being done and found courage somewhere to confront the king about it. He did all he could to dissuade him, reasoning, jesting, threatening, and finally begging. When he failed, he took off his chain of office and flung it to the floor. He was roasted alive for that. When the word of Rhaegar's death and the defeat of his army reached King's Landing, King Aerys sent the queen to Dragonstone with Prince Viserys. Princess Elia would have gone as well, but he forbade her, thinking that Prince Lewin must have betrayed Rhaegar at the Trident, but that Dorne would remain loyal so long as he kept Elia and Aegon at his side. Varys warned against letting the Lannisters into the city, but Aerys ignored him. Ser Jaime was left holding the Red Keep as the sack began. He asked the king's leave to make terms, but instead Aerys commanded him to bring him Lord Tywin's head, if he was no traitor. Jaime also learned that Rossart was with him, and he realized what that meant. He came on Rossart first, finding him dressed as a common man-at-arms hurrying to the postern gate. He killed him, and then he killed Aerys before he could find someone else to carry his message to the pyromancers. Days after the sack, Jaime hunted down Bellies and Garrigus, the two master pyromancers who with Rossart aided Aerys. No one knew of the story behind the Kingslaying because the Kingslayer decided to hold to his vow to keep the king's secrets, in part out of outrage at being judged by men like Lord Stark. Jon Arryn came to Sunspear the year after Robert took the throne, and was questioned closely, along with 100 others, about what happened during the sack and who was responsible for deaths of Elia and her children. Illyria Dane says her sister Ashera fell in love with Lord Eddard Stark of Winterfell at the great tournament at Harrenhal, and killed herself because of a broken heart. When Lord Goodbrook stayed loyal to the king even after the Tullus declared for Robert, Lord Hoster came down on him with fire and sword. Lord Goodbrook's son later made his peace with Robert and Lord Hoster after the Trident. Prince Oberyn attempted to raise Dorne for Prince Viserys. Ravens flew and riders rode, and Jon Arryn came to Sunspear to return Prince Lewin's bones and ended all talks of war when he spoke with Prion Doran. Robert never visited Dorne thereafter, however, and the Red Viper rarely left it. Ser Amory Lorch killed Princess Rhaenys during the sack, bringing the body to Lord Tywin. He killed her with 100 thrusts, claiming she had kicked him and would not stop screaming. Lord Tywin ordered the deaths of Rhaegar's children, but had not desired Princess Elia to be harmed at all. Ser Barristan Selmy was wounded by arrow, sword, and spear on the Trident. The Darrys once stood high in King Aerys' favor, and had been prominent Targaryen loyalists. This cost them half their lands, most of their wealth, and almost all of their power. Prince Rhaegar claimed that he intended to call a council after the Trident, to make changes which he had intended to put into motion long before. After burning Lord Chelstead, King Aerys visited Queen Rhaella's bedchambers and abused her while Ser Jonathan Darry and Ser Jaime Lannister stood outside the chambers, hearing her pleas but doing nothing. She would remain secluded until the morning of the day that she took ship for Dragonstone, hooded and cloaked from sight. Her maids gossiped that she bore scratches and bites as if some beast had savaged her. The men of Crackclaw Point were loyal to the Targaryens. Crabbs, Brune, and Boggses were present in Rhaegar's army at the Trident. By the end of his reign, Aerys too had become so terrified of plots against them that he allowed no blades in his presence, except those of the Kingsguard. His hair and nails grew untended. Ser Lyn Corbray earned his spurs during Robert's rebellion, first fighting against Lord Arryn at Gulltown, and then beneath his banners at the Trident. He is said to have cut down a number of men, including Prince Lewin Martell of the Kingsguard. It's said that Prince Lewin was already gravely wounded before Ser Lyn killed him. Ser Lyn took up his father's sword when he fell wounded at the Trident, cutting down the man who injured them. While his brother, the heir Lionel, took his father to the rear, Ser Lyn led the charge against the Dornish, which was threatening Robert's left flank, breaking their lines to pieces. Lord John Connington was stripped of lands, titles, and wealth before being exiled across the narrow sea. A cousin of his, however, supported Robert and after the war was rewarded by having the castle given to him to hold as Knight of Griffin's Roost, less most of the lands and treasury. Ser Dennis Arryn was a distant cousin of Lord Jon Arryn, from a poor but proud cadet branch. A famous juster, handsome and gallant, he was wed to Jon's eldest niece by his sister Alice and Ser Ellis Waynwood. Dennis was killed at the Battle of the Bells, and his wife died of grief soon after, as well as their newborn child. Prince Lewin of Dorne was an uncle of Doran Martell and died fighting on the Trident. Jaime Lannister and Barristan Selmy were pardoned by Robert Baratheon and were allowed to choose whether they would remain as part of the White Swords. Ser Jonathan Darry, brother to Ser Willem Darry, was the second member of the Kingsguard to die at the Trident. Jon Snow was born about 8 or 9 months before Daenerys Targaryen. Aishera Dayne was not stuck in Starfall the entire time of the war, apparently, and was a lady-in-waiting to Princess Elia in the first few years of her marriage to Prince Rhaegar. Ser Mark Ryswell, a companion of Eddard Stark who died at the Tower of Joy, was not the Lord of House Ryswell, which is a northern house. The Targaryens had lost a number of battles and won some, but they were not really losing the war proper until Rhaegar's death at the Trident and the sack of King's Landing. The siege of Storm's End was an important task, since the loss of it could have meant that some of the Stormlords would have switched sides or refused to continue fighting against the Targaryens. Mace Tyrell had sizable host, but a part of that was with Rhaegar. Rhaegar Targaryen outnumbered Robert Baratheon's forces at the Trident, but Robert's troops were the more battle-tested. There were a number of battles, sieges, ambushes, escapes, duels, and forays during the war. Fighting took place as far away as the Vale and the Dornish marches. When Eddard Stark came to Dorne at the end of the war, he did not bring his army with him. There was no fighting in Dorne during the war, although there were minor skirmishes along the borders. There were Dornish troops with Rhaegar at the Trident, under the command of Prince Lewin of the Kingsguard. However, the Dornishmen did not support him strongly, in part because of Rhaegar's treatment of his wife Elia and in part because of Doran Martell's innate caution. Benjen Stark joined the Night's Watch shortly after Lord Eddard had returned to Winterfell, and Lady Catelyn had taken up residence with the infant Robb. Aishera Dayne's body was never recovered from the sea. The initial replacement for Lord Tywin as Hand as the elderly, amiable Lord Merryweather, famed for throwing lavish feasts and flattering the king shamelessly. When the rebellion began, he declared the rebels outlaws and sent commands to various minor lords to deliver them or their heads, but he himself never stirred from King's Landing. His methods proved so ineffectual that he was exiled by the king and stripped of all his lands and wealth. Robert later restored the title of lord and the castle and the lands, but not most of the wealth. Lord Jon Connington was Aerys' second hand after Tywin, and was chosen for his youthful vigor, courage, and fame as a warrior. There were tensions between King Aerys and Prince Rhaegar. Howland Reed fought with the northern host throughout Robert's rebellion. Sandor Clegane was part of Lord Tywin's host at the sack of King's Landing. Robert proclaimed for the throne only sometime around the Trident. Davos Seaworth smuggled his onions into Storm's End out of a belief that he'd be handsomely rewarded. Rhaegar's body was cremated, according to the customs of the Targaryens. Greyjoy's Rebellion. Balon Greyjoy's rebellion took place 9 years before the start of the first book. It was the last time Eddard Stark and Robert Baratheon had seen each other. Balon Greyjoy proclaimed himself king of the Iron Isles. Greyjoy's stronghold fell to the forces of the Seven Kingdoms, and Lord Greyjoy tendered his surrender. His son Theon, 10 years of age at the time, was taken as ward of Eddard Stark. The warrior priest Thuras of Myr scaled the walls of Pike with a flaming sword in hand. Gregor Clegane was one knight amongst thousands when Greyjoy's rebellion was put down. Balon Greyjoy wore his crown for only a season. Balon Greyjoy took his crown in an attempt to bring back the old way. The stronghold of the Botleys and the village of Lordsport beneath it were razed by Robert Baratheon as he put down the rebellion. It was later rebuilt in stone. The Sept of Lordsport was also destroyed by Robert Baratheon's forces, but unlike the stronghold of the Botleys and the village, it was never rebuilt. Roderick Greyjoy, son to Balon Greyjoy, assaulted Seaguard during his father's great rebellion. Jason Mallister slew him beneath the castle's walls and threw the Ironborn Reavers back into the sea. Robert Baratheon breached the South Tower along the Wall of Pike, collapsing it. Meryn Greyjoy, the second of Balon Greyjoy's sons, was killed in the collapse of the Old South Tower along the Curtain Wall. The final battle during the rebellion was at Pike. When the wall of the castle was breached, Thuras of Myr was the first to go through, but Jorah Mormont was not far behind. He won his knighthood for that act of valor. To celebrate his victory, King Robert had a tourney held in Lannisport. Jorah Mormont won the champion's laurels at Robert's tournament, and because of this received the permission of Lord Leighton Hightower to wed his daughter, Lynesse. Victarion, Lord Captain of the Iron Fleet and brother to Lord Balon Greyjoy, sailed into Lannisport with his other brother Euron Croai during Balon's rebellion and burned the ships there. Victarion is a fearsome warrior, sung of in the alehouses, but it was Euron who made the plan. Thousands of men were mustered by King Robert at Pike. Barristan the Bold led the attack on Old Wyke during Balon Greyjoy's rebellion. The Iron Fleet was caught and smashed in a trap by Stannis Baratheon off the coast of Fair Isle. Aeron Greyjoy's ship, Golden Storm, was broken in half by Stannis' ship Fury during that battle. The faith was little tolerated on the Iron Islands following the failure of the rebellion. Lord Rodrik Harlaw's sister, Lady Gwyneth, took up permanent residence at 10 Towers out of mourning for her husband, who died off Fair Isle during Greyjoy's rebellion. Lord Rodrik Harlaw's 2 sons were killed off Fair Isle during Greyjoy's rebellion. Balon Greyjoy proclaimed himself king beneath Naga's ribs, and was crowned by the priest Tarl, the thrice-drowned, with a driftwood crown. Baelor Blacktide, Lord of Blacktide, was a child when he was taken away to Oldtown as a hostage following the end of the rebellion. His father died in the war. He returned after 8 years as a follower of the Seven. Ser Balman Byrch defeated a number of knights at the tourney in Lannisport following the defeat of Balon Greyjoy. Lord Balon believed that few lords would support Robert in suppressing his rebellion. House Targaryen's symbol is a 3-headed red dragon on a black background, and their motto is Fire and Blood. Ancestors. Lord Enar Targaryen, known as Enar the Exile, was a nobleman from the Valyrian freehold. He is an ancestor of House Targaryen. He was the father of Daenys the Dreamer and Gaemon the Glorious. Lord Gaemon Targaryen, known as Gaemon the Glorious, was the second Lord of Dragonstone of House Targaryen. He was the son of Lord Enar Targaryen, also known as the Exile, and had at least one sister, Daenys Targaryen, also known as Daenys the Dreamer. Gaemon was married to Daenys. Together, they had at least 2 children, Aegon and Alina. Daenys Targaryen, called Daenys the Dreamer, was the daughter of Enar Targaryen, a nobleman from the Valyrian freehold. Sister wife Gaemon. Lord Aegon Targaryen was the son of Daenys Targaryen and Gaemon Targaryen of Dragonstone. Lady Alina Targaryen was the daughter of Gaemon Targaryen of Dragonstone, and the mother of Maegor Targaryen and Aerys Targaryen. She was the sister wife of Aegon Targaryen, and they jointly ruled Dragonstone. Margan brother to Aerys. Lord Aerys Targaryen was a member of House Targaryen and Lord of Dragonstone before the War of Conquest. He was the son of Lord Aegon Targaryen and his sister wife Alina Targaryen. He was the father of Aelix, Balon and Daemon Targaryen. Alina sister wife to Aerys. Daemon Targaryen was the 3rd son of Lord Aerys Targaryen of Dragonstone, and the father of Aerion Targaryen. He became Lord of Dragonstone. His son Aerion succeeded him. Aelix Lord Daemon's brother. Balon Lord Baemion's brother. Lord Aerion Targaryen was the Lord of Dragonstone and husband of Valyna Velaryon. Valyna Velaryon wife to Aerion. King Aegon I Aegon the Conqueror, founder of the Targaryen dynasty and the Iron Throne. Rider of Balerion, succeeded by Maegor I. Queen Visenya, sister wife to Aegon I. Rider of Vhagar and wielder of Dark Sister. Queen Rhaenys, sister wife to Aegon I. Rider of Meraxes. King Maegor I the Cruel. Their son built the Red Keep. King Aenys I Targaryen, son of Aegon I and Queen Rhaenys. Queen Alyssa Velaryon, wife to Aenys and to Rhabar Baratheon. King Jaehaerys I, grandson to Aegon and Maegor's successor. Son of King Aenys. Queen Alysanne Targaryen, sister wife to King Jaehaerys I. Daughter of Aenys. Princess Rhaena, daughter of King Aenys and Queen Alyssa. Sister wife to Aegon. Prince Aegon, son of King Aenys and Queen Alyssa. King Viserys I, son of King Aenys and Queen Alyssa. Princess Vaela Targaryen, daughter of King Aenys and Queen Alyssa. Bormund Baratheon, son of Lady Alyssa. Jocelyn, daughter of Lady Alyssa. Prince Aemon, son of King Jaehaerys. Prince Balon, son of King Jaehaerys. Princess Alyssa, daughter of King Jaehaerys. Sister wife to Balon. Princess Daella, daughter of King Jaehaerys. She was eventually married to Lord Rodrik Arryn. Prince Arryn, son of King Jaehaerys. King Aegon II, son of King Jaehaerys. Prince Vaegon, son of Jaehaerys. Vaegon was later in life known as Archmaester Vaegon and was also called the Dragonless. Princess Maegelle, daughter of Jaehaerys. Prince Valyrian, son of Jaehaerys. Princess Visera, daughter of Jaehaerys. Prince Gaemon, son of Jaehaerys. Princess Sarah, daughter of Jaehaerys. Princess Gale, daughter of Jaehaerys. Princess Aria daughter of Aegon II. Princess Rala daughter of Aegon II. Emma Arryn daughter of Princess Diella. Married to her cousin Prince Viserys, who later became King Viserys I. Prince Daemon son of Baelon. Rhea Royce wife to Daemon, Prince Aegon son of Baelon. King Viserys I son of Baelon. Queen Emma wife of Viserys I. Queen Alicent Hightower was the second wife to King Viserys I Targaryen. Unknown bastard, a son by a whore on the street of bastard, a girl by a maidservant of Alicent Hightower. Princess Rhaenyra daughter of Viserys and Emma. Cheered as the realm's delight when she was young and later called the half-year queen, wife to her uncle Daemon. Fed by her half-brother Aegon II to his dragon. Princess Rhaenys Targaryen, also known among the small folk as the Queen Who Never Was the faithful wife of Lord Corlys Velaryon of Driftmark. She was a dragon rider whose dragon was Melaise, the Red Queen. Was the daughter of Jocelyn Baratheon and Prince Aemon Targaryen. Prince Baelon son of Viserys and Emma. Unknown Prince of Viserys. Prince Aegon II son of Viserys, also known as Aegon the Elder, and later as Aegon the Usurper. Princess Helaena, sister wife to Aegon II. Daughter of Viserys. Prince Aemond, son of Viserys, also known as Aemond One-Eye, and Aemond the Kinslayer, an unknown bastard by Alice Rivers. Prince Daeron son of Viserys, also known as Daeron the Daring. Lena Velaryon daughter to Princess Rhaenys, wife to Daemon. Prince Jacaerys Jace Velaryon, son of Rhaenyra. Prince Lucerys Luke Velaryon, son of Rhaenyra. Prince Joffrey Joff Velaryon, son of Rhaenyra. King Aegon III son of Rhaenyra and Prince Daemon. The Dragonbane, her son who succeeded Aegon II, also known as Aegon the Younger. Prince Viserys II, son of Rhaenyra and Prince Daemon. Princess Visenya was the daughter of Rhaenyra Targaryen and Daemon Targaryen. Rhaena, also known as Rhaena of Pentos, was a daughter of Prince Daemon Targaryen and Lena Velaryon. Baela was a daughter of Prince Daemon Targaryen and Lady Lena Velaryon. Her twin sister was Rhaena Targaryen. She was a dragon rider whose dragon was Moondancer. Jaehaerys was the son of Aegon II Targaryen and his sister wife Queen Helaena Targaryen. He was King Aegon's firstborn son and heir, next in line to the Iron Throne. He had a twin sister, Prince Jaehaera Targaryen, and a younger brother, Prince Maelor Targaryen. The dragon Shrikos was bound to Jaehaerys. Princess Jaehaera the dragon Morgul was bound to Jaehaera. Prince Maelor. Queen Daenerys Velaryon, wife to Aegon III. King Daeron I son of King Aegon III. Princess Aelena Targaryen was the third daughter and youngest child of King Aegon III Targaryen and his wife, Queen Daenerys Velaryon. Alan Velaryon, formerly known as Alan of Hull and later known as Oakenfist, was a legitimized bastard from Driftmark of Dragonseed descent. His brother was Ser Adam Velaryon, dragon rider and heir to Driftmark. Alan was an admiral during the reign of his cousin, King Daeron I Targaryen. John Waters, child of Aelena and Alan Jane Waters, child of Aelena and Alan. Viserys, father Ossifer Plum, mother Aelena. Robin Penrose, child of Aelena and Ronald Penrose. Lena Penrose, child of Aelena and Ronald Penrose. Jocelyn Penrose, child of Aelena and Ronald Penrose. Joy Penrose, child of Aelena and Ronald Penrose. Princess Rhaena Targaryen was the second daughter of King Aegon III Targaryen and his second wife, Queen Daenerys Velaryon. The sister of both King Daeron I Targaryen and King Baelor I Targaryen. At the age of 14, Rhaena became known as one of the maidens in the tower when Baelor imprisoned her and her sisters. King Baelor I the Blessed / the Beloved, his second son, built the Great September of Baelor and the Madian Vault, succeeded by Viserys II. Queen Daena Targaryen, the Defiant, sister wife of King Baelor and mistress of Aegon IV. Daemon Blackfyre, bastard son of Aegon IV by Daena. Prince Blackfyre. Aegon, Aemon and Daemon II, sons of Daemon Blackfyre by Serena Blackfyre. Rowan of Tyrosh was the wife of Daemon Blackfyre and mother to the rest. Haegon, Aenys child of Haegon, 2 sons, daughters. Calla, wife to her half-uncle Igor Rivers. Maelys Blackfyre descended from Daemon Blackfyre. He was named Maelys the Monstrous for supposedly having eaten his twin in the womb, making him a kinslayer. Daemon cousin to Maelys. King Viserys II, second son of Rhaenyra, elevated to the Iron Throne after the death of Baelor I, succeeded by Aegon IV. Lady Lara was a Lyseni noblewoman born to the wealthy and influential Roger banking family from the free city of Lys. Wife to King Viserys II, Prince Aemon, child of Lara and Viserys II. King Aegon IV, the unworthy, son and successor of Viserys II. Queen Naerys, sister wife to Aegon IV. Prince Aemon, called the Dragon Knight, son of Viserys II and Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. Alysanne, Lily, Willow and Rosie Rivers, daughters of King Aegon IV. Shaerra Seastar was the last of the great bastards of King Aegon IV Targaryen, born to his last mistress, Serenei of Lys. She was famous for her beauty, and the known lover of Brynden Rivers. Princess Daenerys, married to Prince Meryn of House Martell, daughter of Aegon IV and Queen Naerys. Igor Rivers, called Bittersteel, bastard son of Aegon IV by a noblewoman of House Bracken. Brynden Rivers, called Bloodraven, bastard son of Aegon IV by a noblewoman of House Blackwood. Shaerra Seastar, bastard daughter of Aegon IV by a noblewoman of the free city of Lys. King Daeron II, the good, son of Aegon IV and Naerys, perished during the Great Spring Sickness. Quen Maria of House Martell, wife to Daeron II. Prince Baelor, son of King Daeron II and Queen Maria. Jenna Dondarrion was a member of House Dondarrion and the wife of Prince Baelor Breakspear Targaryen, and the mother of Valar and Mutaris Targaryen. Prince Valar Targaryen, also known as the Young Prince. Kira of Triosh, wife to Valar. They had 2 sons. Prince Mutaris Targaryen, also known as the even younger prince. King Aerys I, successor to Daeron II. Son of King Daeron II and Queen Maria. Queen Aelinor, Aerys I's sister wife, succeeded by Mikar I, daughter of King Daeron II and Queen Maria. Prince Rhaegal, son of King Daeron II and Queen Maria. Alis Arryn, wife to Rhaegal. Prince Aelora, child of Prince Rhaegal. Twin and broer husband to Princess Aelora. Prince Aelor, child of Prince Rhaegal. Prince Daenora, child of Prince Rhaegal. King Mikar I, son of King Daeron II, successor of Aerys. Queen Diana Dane was a member of House Dane, the wife of Mikar Targaryen and the mother of Daeron, Aerion, Aemon, Aegon, Rhae and Daella Targaryen. Prince Aerion Targaryen, also known as Aerion the Monstrous or Aerion Brightflame, who killed himself by drinking wildfire. Prince Maegor Targaryen was the son of Prince Aerion and Princess Daenora Targaryen. Prince Daeron Targaryen, sometimes referred to as Daeron the Drunken, was the eldest son of Mikar I Targaryen. Princess Viola Targaryen was the daughter of Prince Daeron Targaryen and Princess Daenora Targaryen. Princess Rhae, daughter to King Mikar I. Princess Daella, daughter of King Mikar I Targaryen. Prince Aemon, who became Maester and joined the Night's Watch. King Aegon V, the unlikely, successor of Mikar and predecessor of Aerys II, the Mad King. Queen Betha Blackwood, known as Black Betha, was a member of House Blackwood who became queen consort to King Aegon V Targaryen. Jaehaerys II was king of the 7 kingdoms and the 16th Targaryen to sit the Iron Throne. He was the father of Aerys II and grandfather of Rhaegar, Viserys and Daenerys. Queen Shaerra Targaryen was the eldest daughter of King Aegon V Targaryen and Queen Betha Blackwood, sister wife to Jaehaerys II. Prince Duncan I, son of King Aegon, also known as Prince Duncan the Small and the Prince of Dragonflies, was the first son of Aegon V Targaryen and a member of House Targaryen. Jenny of Oldstone's wife to Duncan. Princess Rhaelle Targaryen was the younger child of King Aegon V Targaryen and Queen Betha Blackwood. She was married to Lord Ormond Baratheon of Storm's End. Queen Rhaella, sister wife of King Aerys II. King Aerys, successor of Aegon V, the Mad King. Prince Rhaemond Rivers, bastard son of King Aerys II. Prince Viserys III, son of King Aerys II. Princess Armia, wife to Viserys. Prince Rhaegar, son of King Aerys II. Princess Sheena Targaryen was second child of King Aerys II Targaryen and Queen Rhaella Targaryen. She was stillborn. Prince Daeron Targaryen was the second-born son of King Aerys II Targaryen and Queen Rhaella Targaryen. He lived for only half a year. Prince Aegon Targaryen was the third-born son of King Aerys II Targaryen and Queen Rhaella Targaryen. Amarys, mother to Aeron. Aeron Blackfry, bastard daughter of King Aerys II. Princess Daenerys, daughter of King Aerys II. Princess Rhaenys, daughter of Prince Rhaegar I. Prince Aegon, sixth son of Prince Rhaegar I. Princess Annalise, daughter of Prince Viserys. Princess Otilia, daughter of Rhaegar I and Lyanna. Princess Layla, daughter of Rhaegar I and Lyanna. Lady Rhianna, sixth great-granddaughter of Sharera Setar. Lady Nairyn Targaryen, daughter of Aemon and Daella Targaryen. Lady Aelinor Targaryen, descendant of Aegon V and King Mikar's line. King Roderickson of Brandon. Griffin King's descendant, daughter, wife to King Roderick, King Carlin Stark/Karstark, son of Roderick. King Rickard Stark, Khan of Carlin Jorman, descendant, wife to King Rickard, Queen Nymeria, wife to Mors Martell. Unknown child, wife to King Rickard's child. God of the sea, married the goddess of the wind Durin, God's grief. Elenii, God's grief, wife of Durin, child of the god of the sea and goddess of wind. Argilac Durrandon, Queen Shara Arryn. Ronal Arryn, son to Shara. Enar Targaryen, known as Enar the Exile, first Lord of Dragonstone. Emperor Giscari's daughter's descendant, wife to Enar. Gaemon Targaryen, Enar's son, known as Gaemon the Glorious, second Lord of Dragonstone. Daenys Targaryen, Enar's daughter, known as Daenys the Dreamer, sister wife to Gaemon. Aegon Targaryen, Gaemon's son by Daenys, third Lord of Dragonstone. Aelina Targaryen, Gaemon's daughter by Daenys, sister wife to Aegon. Maegor Targaryen, Aegon's son by Aelina. Aerys Targaryen, Aegon's son by Aelina. Aelix Targaryen, Aerys' son. Aelon Targaryen, Aerys' son. Daemon Targaryen, Aerys' son, fifth Lord of Dragonstone. Aerion Targaryen, Daemon's son, married to Lady Valenna Velaryon. Visenya Targaryen, sister wife to Aegon. Aegon Targaryen, who would become known as King Aegon I Targaryen, Aegon the Conqueror and Aegon the Dragon. Last Lord of Dragonstone, son of Aerion. Rhaenys Targaryen, sister wife to Aegon. Prince Garin of Croyaine's daughter, wife to Dothraki Temo. Dothraki Temo, mother of Orys, descendant of Dothraki Temo and Prince Garin. Lord Orys Baratheon, known as Orys One Hand, the founder of House Baratheon and the first Lord of Storm's End. Hand of the king to Aegon the Conqueror, and son of Aerion. Argalia his wife, daughter to Argilac Durrandon or the Arrogant, firstborn son. Monica Velaryon was the wife of Orys Baratheon's firstborn son and mother of Reginald, William, Stefan, Porrick and Flynn Baratheon, and daughter to Ronal Arryn. Davos Baratheon, son of Lord Orys. Michael Baratheon, son of Lord Orys. Axel Baratheon, son of Lord Orys. Lionel Baratheon, son of Lord Orys. Reginald, grandson of Orys. King Harrenhal's daughter, wife to Reginald. William, grandson of Orys. Stefan, grandson of Orys. Porrick, grandson of Orys. Flynn, grandson of Orys. Ser Raymond Baratheon, younger son of Lord Baratheon, a knight of King Aenys I Targaryen's Kingsguard. Lord Rabar Baratheon, grandson of Orys, Lord of Storm's End, hand of the king to King Jaehaerys I Targaryen. Mary Dowager Queen Alyssa Velaryon. Lord Bormund Baratheon, Rabar's son, Lord of Storm's End during Great Council of 101 AC. A Grey King, decedent wife to Bormund. Lord Boros Baratheon, Bormund's son, Lord of Storm's End and Lord of the Stormlands during the final days of Viserys I Targaryen. Lady Jocelyn Baratheon, Rabar's daughter, married to Prince Aemon Targaryen and mother of Rhaenys Targaryen. Goen Baratheon, the third son of a former Lord of Storm's End. He was the last Baratheon to marry a member of House Lannister, Tya, until Robert married Cersei. Lord Lionel Baratheon, called the Laughing Storm, a knight at the tourney at Ashford Meadow, became Lord of Storm's End. Lord Ormond Baratheon, heir of Lord Lionel, married Rhaelle Targaryen. Hand of the king to King Jaehaerys II Targaryen. Lord Stefan Baratheon, Lord Ormond's son, Lord of Storm's End and father to Robert, Stannis and Renly. Cassana Estermont, King Robert I, King of the Undulls, the Rhoynar and the First Men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and Protector of the Realm, former Lord of Storm's End. Gored by a boar, Valence Baratheron's sister to Robert, Queen Cersei Lannister, his wife. Edric Storm, Robert's acknowledged by Delaena Florent. Raised at Storm's End. Stannis, Lord of Dragonstone and Storm's End and Lord of the Stormlands. Celis Florent, his wife. Shireen Baratheon, his only daughter and heir. Renly, Lord of Storm's End and Lord of the Stormlands. Paulus, son of Renly. Rosalie, daughter to Renly. Ser Harbert, most likely a Baratheon. Great uncle of Robert, Stannis, and Renly. Once Castellan of Storm's End. Prince Harry, Princess Enywin, Maya Stone Gendry. Arabella. Houses of Westeros. House Valerion of Driftmark rules the island of Driftmark, the largest island of Blackwater Bay in the Crownlands. Their castles include Driftmark and High Tide. The head of House Valerion is titled Lord of the Tides and Master of Driftmark. The Valerions are sworn to Dragonstone. Their arms depict a silver seahorse on sea green. Their words do not appear in the books, but according to semi-canon sources they are the old, the true, the brave. Lord Daemon Valerion, Master of Ships to Aegon the Conqueror during the War of Conquest. Lady Valyna Valerion, wife of Aerion Targaryen, mother to Aegon I Targaryen, Visenya Targaryen, and Rhaenys Targaryen. Herself half Targaryen on her mother's side. Ser Corlys Valerion, First Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. Lord Ethan Valerion, Master of Ships to Aegon the Conqueror. His daughter, Queen Alyssa Valerion, wife of King Aenys I Targaryen, mother to Rhaena, Aegon, Viserys, Jaehaerys, Alysanne, and Vaela Targaryen. Lord Daemon Valerion, the Admiral of Ships during the reign of King Maegor I Targaryen. Lord Corlys Valerion, known as the Sea Snake, Master of Driftmark and Lord of the Tides. Hand of the Queen to Rhaenyra Targaryen, husband of Princess Rhaenys Targaryen. Ser Laenor Valerion, first husband of Rhaenyra Targaryen. Rode the Dragon Seasmoke. Died in 120 AC. Prince Jacaerys Valerion, first son and heir of Laenor and Rhaenyra. Prince Lucerys Valerion, second son of Laenor and Rhaenyra. Prince Joffrey Valerion, youngest son of Laenor and Rhaenyra. Lady Lena Valerion, second wife of Prince Daemon Targaryen and mother of Rhaena and Baela Targaryen. Died in 120 AC. Ser Vaemond Valerion, eldest nephew of Lord Corlys Valerion. His wife, sons, and 5 younger brothers. Ser Adam Valerion, born Adam of Hull, a legitimized bastard and heir to Corlys after the death of Ser Laenor. Rode the Dragon Seasmoke. Lord Alan Valerion, born Alan of Hull, Adam's brother, legitimized bastard heir to Corlys after his brother's death. Later Lord of Driftmark, known as Lord Oakenfist. He was a great admiral during the conquest of Dorne. Married to Lady Baela Targaryen. John Waters, his bastard son by Princess Elena Targaryen, twin to Jane Waters. Jane Waters, his bastard daughter by Princess Elena Targaryen, twin to John Waters. Daeron Valerion, a cousin to Lord Alan, died fighting for Oakenfist in the Stepstones. Queen Daenerys Valerion, his daughter, second wife and queen of King Aegon III Targaryen, and mother of Daeron I, Baelor I, Dina, Rhaena, and Alina. Lucerys Valerion, Master of Ships to Aerys II Targaryen. Lord Montford Valerion, Lord of the Tides and Master of Driftmark. Burned with his ship at the Battle of the Blackwater. Lord Montrese Valerion, his son and heir. A young boy, Arain Waters, the bastard of Driftmark, Montford's bastard brother. A young and handsome Selsail, former Grand Admiral turned pirate and self-fashioned Lord of the Waters. House Penrose of Parchments is a noble house from Parchments in the Stormlands. They are one of the main noble houses sworn to the Baratheons of Storm's End. Their blazon is Tenny, 2 quills crossed argent. According to semi-canon sources, their words are set down our deeds. House Hightower of the Hightower is one of the most important and powerful vassals of House Tyrell, and before them of House Gardner. Their seat is the Hightower in the city of Oldtown within the Reach. The sigil of House Hightower is a stone white watchtower, with a fire on the top. Their words are "We light the way." They possess a Valyrian steel sword called Vigilance. Runsel Hightower. He was Lord Commander of the Night's Watch and tried to bequeath the watch to his bastard son. Lord Manfred Hightower was the head of House Hightower during the War of Conquest. Lord Martin Hightower, eldest son and heir of Manfred. Lady Cerys Hightower, daughter of Martin, first wife of Maegor I. Died in 45 AC, possibly killed under Maegor's command. Ser Morgan Hightower had recently joined the warrior sons during the conquest, and later became their commander. He was the sole warrior's son pardoned by Magar I following the faith militant uprising. Possibly killed his brother, the High Septon. High Septon had recently taken the vows of a faith during the conquest, and later became High Septon. Condemned Magar's later marriages and was killed in 44 AC, after a threat that Magar was going to burn down the starry September. Unknown number of daughters. Manfred offered his youngest to Aegon I upon opening the gates of Old Town to him, which Aegon declined so as not to offend his queens. Patrice Hightower, maiden sister of Manfred and aunt of Martin, suspected by some to have murdered her nephew, the High Septon, in 44 AC. Ser Otto Hightower. He was the hand of the king during the reigns of Jaehaerys I, Viserys I and Aegon II. He was the uncle of Lord Ormond Hightower. Alicent Hightower, daughter of Ser Otto and queen of King Viserys I, who gave him 3 sons and a daughter, including Aegon II, who was one of the claimants in the Dance of the Dragons. At least one other son, Ser Gawain Hightower, the youngest brother of Queen Alicent. Lord Ormond Hightower, Lord of the Hightower during the Dance of the Dragons. He knighted Prince Daeron Targaryen, using the Valyrian longsword Vigilance, dubbing the Prince Ser Daeron the Daring. He was killed by Lord Roderick Dustin at the Battle of Tumbleton. An unnamed number of sons. Ser Bryndon Hightower, the foremost knight of Old Town, cousin to Lord Ormond. Killed alongside Ormond by Lord Roderick Dustin at the Battle of Tumbleton. Ser Hobart Hightower, cousin to Lord Ormond. 60 years old in 130 AC. Ser Abelard Hightower. He was a participant of the Ashford tourney and heir of Hightower. Lord Quentin Hightower. He ordered Old Town closed and ordered anyone trying to leave to be killed to prevent the spread of the Grey Plague as it took half the city. Survivors of the plague killed him and his young son in the streets the day he had those orders rescinded. House Harroway of Harrenhal is an extinct noble house from Harrenhal in Riverlands. According to semi-canon sources, they blazoned their arms with Perben's sinister orange and black rayon, a castle countercharged. Lord Lucas Harroway, Lord of Harrenhal and Hand of the King. Queen Alice Harroway, second wife of King Magar I Targaryen. House Stark of Winterfell is one of the great houses of Westeros and the principal noble house of the north. Their sigil is a grey direwolf racing across a field of white, and their words are "Winter is coming," one of only a few house mottos to be a warning rather than a boast. Kings of Winter/Kings in the North. Bran the Builder, mythic founder of House Stark and the first king in the North, builder of Winterfell and the Wall. King Brandon the Breaker, allied with King Beyond the Wall Joramun to end the reign of the Night's King. King Theon Stark, known as the Hungry Wolf. King Brandon the Shipwright, who loved sailing and built up a mighty northern fleet. King Brandon the Burner, who burned the entire northern fleet after the disappearance of his father on the Sunset Sea. King Doran Stark. King Jon Stark, who built the Wolf's Den at White Harbor after driving away sea raiders. King Rickard Stark, known as the Laughing Wolf, who defeated the Marsh King and took his daughter as wife, extending his kingdom to include the Neck. King Roderick Stark, who won Bear Island from the Ironborn in a wrestling match and granted it to House Mormont. King Edric Snowbeard. King Brandon Ice-Eyes. King Benjen the Bitter. King Benjen the Sweet. King Aeron Stark. King Edirion the Bridegroom. King Walton the Moon King. King Brandon the Bad. Carlin Stark, a younger brother of the king and founder of the House Karstark. King Jorah Stark. King Jonos Stark. King Edwin the Spring King. King Brandon the Daughterless. Osric Stark, son or brother of the king in the north, the youngest Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, who served for 60 years. King Harlan Stark, who defeated rebellious House Bolton centuries ago. King Torrhen Stark, known as the king who knelt, the last king in the north, who bent the knee to Aegon the Conqueror, making the North owe allegiance to House Targaryen. Brandon Snow, King Torrhen's bastard brother. Lords of Winterfell. Lord Ellard Stark, supported Laenor Valarion's claim in Great Council of 101 AC. Lord Benjen Stark, married to Lady Lisa Locke. Lord Rickon Stark, married to Lady Gillian Glover. Lord Cregan Stark, known as the Old Man of the North. Bernard Stark, married to Margaret Karstark. Benjen Stark. Brandon Stark. Elric Stark, descendants of Cregan. Lady Ara Nori, wife of Cregan. Rickon Stark, married to Jane Manderley. Serena Stark, married to John Umber and Edric Stark. Sansa Stark, married to Jonel Stark. Lady Alysanne Blackwood, known as Black Ally, wife of Cregan. Sarah Stark, Alice Stark, Rya Stark, Mariah Stark. Lady Lynera Stark, wife of Cregan. Lord Jonel Stark, known as One Eye, married both Robin Risswell and Sansa Stark. Edric Stark, married to Serena Stark, Creggard Stark and Torrhen Stark. Twin sons Erigel Stark, married to Robard Serwyn Arana Stark, married to Osric Umber Lyanna Stark. Lord Bart Hogan Stark, known as Barth Blacksword. Lord Brandon Stark and his wife Alice Karstark. Lord Rodwell Stark, married to Miriam Manderley. Lord Baron Stark, married to Laura Royce. Arsa Stark, Lionel Snow, known as Lonnie, bastard son by Willa Fenn, descendants of Baron. Lord Baron Stark, Lord Donner Stark. Lord Willem Stark, married to Milan the Blackwood. Lord Edwyle Stark, married to Marna Locke. Lord Rickard Stark, married to Liara Stark. Jocelyn Stark, married to Benedict Royce. Brandon Stark, Willem's son by second wife Leanne Glover. Arto Stark, known as the Implacable, married to Lysara Karstark. Brandon Stark and Benjen Stark, twin sons. Barina Stark, Alysanne Stark, Erold Stark. Roderick Stark, known as the Wandering Wolf, married to Arya Flint. Branda Stark, married to Harold Rogers. Liara Stark, married to Rickard Stark. Brandon Stark, eldest son and heir of Lord Rickard Stark. He was slain along with his father by order of the Mad King, Aerys II. Eddard Ned Stark, middle son of Lord Rickard Stark. Ned served as Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North until his execution in King's Landing, several months after taking office as Hand of the King. Catelyn Tully, Lord Eddard's wife. She is the mother of Robb, Sansa, Arya, Bran and Rickon Stark. She is killed during the Red Wedding, but is later resurrected by Beric Dondarrion and is known as Lady Stoneheart. Lila Stark, daughter to Edward Stark. Robb Stark, Lord Eddard's eldest trueborn son and heir, also known as the Young Wolf. He takes his father's position as Lord Stark and is later crowned king in the North and of the Trident by his bannermen, prior to his death in the Red Wedding. His direwolf is named Grey Wind and is killed along with him at the Twins. Sansa Stark, Eddard and Catelyn's elder daughter. Her direwolf is named Lady and is killed under Queen Cersei's orders in retribution for Arya's direwolf savaging her son Joffrey. She is currently hiding in the Vale of Arryn as Elaine Stone. Arya Stark, Eddard and Catelyn's younger daughter. She is publicly known to have married Ramsay Bolton, but Ramsay has instead married Jane Poole, who was forced to pose as the Stark girl. Arya is instead in Braavos among the Faceless Men. Her direwolf, Nymeria, leads a wolf pack roaming the Riverlands. Bran Stark, Eddard and Catelyn's second son. Bran becomes crippled and learns how to become a warg. He is believed to have been killed by Theon Greyjoy, but is actually beyond the wall at the Cave of the Three-Eyed Crow. His direwolf is named Summer. Rickon Stark, Eddard and Catelyn's youngest child, only 3 years old when the series begins. He is also believed dead at the hands of Theon, though actually Rickon is in Skagos with Osha. His direwolf is Shaggy Dog. Jon Snow, Eddard's bastard son by an unspecified mother. Jon was raised at Winterfell alongside his Stark half-siblings. Having joined the Night's Watch, he has risen to the rank of Lord Commander. His direwolf is Ghost, presumably killed by his own men. Lyanna Stark, only daughter of Lord Rickard. Once betrothed to Robert Baratheon, Lyanna died after being spirited away by Rhaegar Targaryen. Benjen Stark, the youngest son of Lord Rickard and the last surviving sibling of Ned. He is first ranger of the Night's Watch and brings Jon Snow to the Wall when he wants to join the Order. Benjen is missing in the lands beyond the Wall. House Lannister of Casterly Rock is one of the great houses of 7 kingdoms, and the principal house of the Westerlands. Their seat is Casterly Rock, though another branch exists that is based in nearby Lannisport. Their sigil is a golden lion on a field of crimson. Their official motto is Hear Me Roar. However, their unofficial motto, equally well known, is a Lannister always pays his debts. Lon the Clever, legendary founding ancestor of House Lannister during the Age of Heroes. King Lorien Lannister, the Lion, the first true known Lannister king. King Tybolt Lannister, the Thunderbolt, who made sure that the first Undull warlords in the Westerlands met a bloody end. King Tyrion III Lannister, who instead of fighting the Undulls, took their sons and daughters for wards and fosterlings. King Gerald II Lannister, son of King Tyrion III, who took the same approach as his father regarding the Undull invaders. King Gerald III Lannister died without issue. His only daughter's husband, Ser Joffrey Lyddon, took the Lannister name and became the first Undull to rule the Rock. King Joffrey Lannister, married into the house, took his wife's name and was the first Undull to rule the Rock. King Tyrion Lannister extended his rule as far east as the Golden Tooth. King Tommen I Lannister built a great fleet and brought Fair Isle into the realm. King Lorien II Lannister held the first tourney ever seen in the Westerlands. King Lancel I Lannister, the Lion, rode to war against the Gardner Kings and conquered the Reach as far south as Old Oak. King Lorien III Lannister, son of King Lancel I, lost all his father gained and earned the mocking name Lorien the Limp. King the Great sailed to the Iron Islands and returned with 100 hostages. King Gerald Lannister is said to have beheaded the Ironborn King Harold Half-Drowned and his heir with the house's Valyrian steel sword Brightroar in one swing. King Norwyn Lannister, the Niggardly, who was not known for his open-handedness. King Lorien IV Lannister, the Lackwit, one of Casterly Rock's many weak, cruel and feeble kings. King Lorien V Lannister, known as Queen Lorea, for he was fond of dressing in his wife's clothing. One of Casterly Rock's many weak, cruel and feeble kings. King Tyrion II Lannister, the Tormentor, a strong king, famed for his prowess with a battle-axe. His true delight was torture. King Lancel V Lannister invaded the Reach during the reign of Giles III Gardner. He was killed by Ser Wilbert Oscry. Queen Lelia Lannister, the wife of King Harmon II Hoare and mother of Kings Harmon III and Haegon Hoare. King Tommen II Lannister disappeared with the ancestral greatsword Brightroar during an expedition to Valyria. King Loren I Lannister, Loren the last king of the Rock at the time of Aegon's conquest, he rose a lord. Lord Lyman Lannister, the Lord of Casterly Rock during the Faith Militant Uprising. Lord Tywin Lannister, who was present at the Great Council of 101 AC. Lord Jason Lannister, Lord of Casterly Rock during King Viserys I's reign and Aegon II's. He was the older twin brother of Tyland Lannister. Killed during the Dance of the Dragons by Pate of Longleaf. Lady Johanna Westerling, his widow. Ser Tyland Lannister, Master of Ships during the reign of Viserys I and the younger twin brother to the Lord of Casterly Rock. Later made Master of Coin and Hand of the King. Tya Lannister, last Lannister to wed a Baratheon before the reign of Robert I Baratheon. Lord Daemon Lannister, known as the Grey Lion, a participant at the Ashford tourney and head of house during the reign of Daeron II. Lord Tybolt Lannister, son and heir of Daemon, succeeded as Lord of Casterly Rock during the reign of Aerys I. Lady Sorrel Lannister, daughter and only child of Lord Tybolt, the child lady of Casterly Rock, rumored to have been murdered by her uncle Gerald. Lord Gerald Lannister, known as Gerald the Golden, younger brother, and advisor to Lord Tybolt. Regent for Lady Sorrel and her successor. Lady Rowan, wife of Gerald's 4 sons. Vanished under mysterious circumstances. Ser Tywald Lannister, his eldest son. Squire to Lord Roger Rayne. Knighted on his deathbed. Ser Tyon Lannister, Gerald's second son and Tywald's twin. Killed at Battle of Wendwater Bridge during the 4th Blackfyre Rebellion. Lord Tytos Lannister, known as the Toothless Lion, Lord Gerald's 3rd son and successor. Lord of Casterly Rock. Jason Lannister, Gerald's 4th son. Father of Daemon, Stafford and Joanna Lannister, 2 other sons and 2 other daughters, and a bastard daughter, Lenora Hill. Lord Tywin Lannister, Lord of Casterly Rock, Shield of Lannisport, Warden of the West and Hand of the King. Slain by his son. Lady Joanna Lannister, his wife and cousin. Died in childbirth. Queen Cersei Lannister, Queen Dowager and Lady of Casterly Rock, his daughter. The widow of Robert I. Ser Jaime Lannister the Kingslayer, his eldest son. Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. Maimed by Vargo Hoat. Tyrion Lannister, his second son and heir, rightful Lord of Casterly Rock. Called the Imp and Halfman. In exile. currently with the second sons. Ser, Kevin Lannister, Tywin's eldest brother, Lord Regent for Tommen I and Protector of the Realm. Married to Dorna Swyft. Assassinated by Varys. Lord Lancel Lannister, Kevin's eldest son, Lord of Derry. Joined the warriors' sons. Willem Lannister, Kevin's second son. Slain at Riverrun under Lord Rickard Karstark's orders. Twin to Martin. Martin Lannister, Kevin's third son. Twin to Willem. Janie Lannister, Kevin's daughter. Lady Jenna Lannister, his sister. Married to Lord Darlessa Marbrand. Ser, Tygett Lannister, his second brother. Married to, died from a pox. Tyreek Lannister, Tygett's son. Missing since the bread riots at King's Landing. Geryon Lannister, his third brother. Missing in Essos and presumed dead. Joy Hill, Geryon's bastard daughter. Ser Daemon Lannister, older, half. Brother of Stafford and Joanna Lannister. Ella Lannister, wife of Daemon and mother to his son Damian. Cousin of an unknown branch. Ser Damian Lannister, Daemon's son, Castellan of Casterly Rock, married to Sherera Craighall. Ser Lucien Lannister, his son. Lana Lannister, his daughter, married to Lord Antario Jast. Ser Stafford Lannister, younger brother of Joanna Lannister. Slain at the Battle of Oxcross. Ser Davin Lannister, Stafford's son. Made Warden of the West after Tywin Lannister's death. Serena Lannister, Stafford's daughter. Muriel Lannister, Stafford's daughter. Lenora Hill, bastard daughter of Jason Lannister, sister to Joanna, Stafford and Daemon. With unspecified familiar relationship to the main branch there is also Margot Lannister, a cousin of an unknown branch, who married to Lord Titus Peake. House Durin of Storm's End. Durin Godsgrief, a legendary hero of the Dawn Age, who built Storm's End and founded House Durrandon. Durin, called the Devout, his son who gave the Rainwood back to the children of the forest after his father had taken it. Durin, called Bronzaxe, who finally seized the Rainwood for good and all. Durin, called the Dour, who, as either Durin V of Six, slew Luwin the Last, king of the giants. Durin, called the Raven Friend, who saw the founding of the Castle Stonedance by Malden Massey. Durin, called the Young, also called the Butcher Boy, who turned back a Dornish invasion. Eric Durrandon, called Kin Killer, who may have been his brother. Durin, called the Fair, who took the daughter of Edwin Evenstar to wife and so brought Tarth into his realm. Eric III Durrandon, called the Sailmaker, his grandson, who claimed Estermont and the Isles further south. Durin X Durrandon, who extended his reign to the shores of the Blackwater Rush. Munford I Durrandon, called the Mighty, his son, who conquered Duskendale and Maidenpool. Durin XI Durrandon, called the Dim, his son, who lost his father's gains and more besides. Baron Durrandon, called the Beautiful, who lost even more domains his grandfather had earned. Durwald I Durrandon, called the Fat, whose long reign saw many revolts and whose writ did not extend beyond the walls of Storm's End. Morden II Durrandon, who was displaced by his bastard half-brother and confined to a tower cell. Ronard Storm, called the Bastard, who usurped his half-brother's rule and ruled for stable 30 years. Eric VII Durrandon, called the Unready, who didn't pay much heed to the news of the Undul invasion, while he was fighting other wars. Carlton II Durrandon, called the Conqueror, his grandson, who was the first Storm King to face the Undulls in battle. Carlton III Durrandon, his successor, who continually fought the Undulls throughout his reign. Munford V Durrandon, his son, who defeated the Holy Brotherhood of the Undulls at the Battle of Bronzegate at the cost of his own life. Baldric I Durrandon, called the Cunning, who played the Undulls against each other. Durin XXI Durrandon, who sought out the Children of the Forest to form the Weirwood Alliance against the Undulls. Cleodon I Durrandon, who made an alliance with 3 Dornish kings against the Undulls. Malden IV Durrandon, who took an Undull maiden as his wife. Durin XXIV Durrandon, called Half-Blood, his son, who continued his father's policy of intermarriage with the Undulls. Ormond III Durrandon, who took the faith of the Seven as his own religion and cast aside worship of the old gods. Arlen I, called the Avenger, who expanded his kingdom as far as the Blackwater Rush and the headwaters of the Mander. 3. Arlen III Durrandon, who conquered the Riverlands. 3. Great-grandson of Arlen I, Erec Durrandon, who lost the Riverlands to House Hoare. Arlen V. Durrandon, eldest son and heir of Erech. Argilac Durrandon, called the Arrogant, last of the Storm Kings, killed by Orys Baratheon during the last storm. Princess Argella Durrandon, his daughter and heir, married to Orys Baratheon. 1. House Hoare of Orkmont is an extinct house of the Iron Islands, known as the Black Line. Their banner depicted Persaltyr and with two heavy silver chains crossing between a gold longship on black, a dark green pine on white, a cluster of red grapes on gold, and a black raven flying in a blue sky, clockwise. The sigil represented the distant lands that had been under the rule of the house, the longship for the Iron Islands, the green pine for Bear Island, the grape cluster for the Arbor, and the black raven for the maesters of Old Town, all bound by the iron chains of the Iron Men. 3. Harag Hoare, the Hoare King raised by a Kingsmoot. Ravos the Raper, his son. Eric the Eagle, his grandson. Cord Hoare, the greatest Hoare King. Harris Stumphand, chosen king through the finger dance. Wulfgar the Widowmaker, a king opposed by drowned priests. Horgan Priestkiller, Wulfgar's great-grandson, a king opposed by drowned priests. Fergon the Fierce, a king opposed by drowned priests. Othgar the Soulless, a king opposed by drowned priests. Othgar the Demon Lover, a king opposed by drowned priests. Craghorn of the Red Smile, a king opposed by drowned priests. Harmon the Host, the first literate Iron King. Harmon the Haggler, a great traveler. Harmon the Handsome, an overthrown king. Hagon the Heartless, Harmon III's brother. Corwin the Cunning, a cautious king. Harlan Hoare, the elder brother of Harwin. Harwin Hardhand, the Hoare King who took the Riverlands from the Storm Kings. Halleck Hoare, the son of Harwin. Harren the Black, the last Hoare King, burned alive at Harrenhal. Lord Commander Hoare, Harren's brother who commanded the Night's Watch. Younger sister of Harwin, the grandmother of Corin Valmark. Houses sworn to the great houses. Houses sworn to Storm's End. Houseballing. The upper left side of the arms shows the Baratheon or Durrandon colors reversed beneath a bend sinister, an indication that the founder of the house was either a bastard or a descendant of a bastard of one of those lines. House Buckler of Bronzegate. House Caffrin of Faunton. House Cairn of Nightsong. The Lord of House Cairn is given the title of Lord of the Marches. After the Battle of the Blackwater, their domains are given to the newly made House Foot of Nightsong. House Connington of Griffin's Roost. House Dondarrion of Blackhaven. The first Dondarrion was given a lordship by a Storm King for delivering an important message. The house sigil of a forked, purple lightning bolt commemorates a lucky lightning strike that saved the messenger's life. The Dondarrions are Marcher Lords. House Errol of Haystack Hall. House Estermont of Greenstone. Lord Estermont is maternal grandfather to King Robert Baratheon. His mother, Lady Cassanna, was the daughter of Lord Estermont. House Fell of Fellwood. House Gower. House Grandison of Grandview. House Hasty. House Hurston. House Horp. House Kellington. House Lonmouth. House Mertens of Mistwood. House Morrigan of Crow's Nest. House Musgood. House Peasberry of Pottingfield. House Penrose of Parchments. House Rogers of Amberley. House Seaworth. House Selmy of Harvest Hall. House Staidman of Broad Arch. House Swan of Stonehelm. The Swans are Marcher Lords. House Swigert. House Tarth of Evenfall Hall. The Tarths rule the island of Tarth, situated at the edge of Shipbreaker Bay. Lord Selwyn is called the Evenstar. His only daughter and heiress is Brienne, a POV character. House Toyne. This house fell into disgrace when a Toyne of the Kingsguard was executed for sleeping with Aegon Ivy's mistress. His two brothers tried to avenge him by murdering the king, but Aegon was saved by his brother Aemon the Dragon Knight, who died defending him. Simon Toyne, of a later generation, became an infamous outlaw, leading the Kingswood Brotherhood before being killed by Barristan Selmy. House Trant of Gallows Grey. House Tudbury. House Wagstaff. House Wensington is a noble house from the Stormlands. According to semi-canon sources, their arms are two golden trumpets crossed on blue, a gold chief with 3 black stags. There is Sound the Charge. House Wild of Rainhouse. Houses sworn to House Martell Illyrian of God's Grace. Blackmont of Blackmont, Dalt of Lemonwood, Dane of Starfall, Dane of High Hermitage, a cadet branch of House Dane of Starfall, Fowler of Skirich, Gargalen of Salt Shore, Jourdain of the Tor, Manwoody of Kingsgrave, Corgyle of Sandstone, Santagar of Spotswood, Toland of Ghost Hill, Euler of the Hellholt, Vaith of the Red Dunes, Will of Will, Ironwood of Ironwood, the most powerful house sworn to House Martell, sworn houses and former sworn houses, House Allgood, House Banefort of Banefort, House Brax of Hornvale. House Brax is one of the more powerful houses sworn to Casterly Rock. Lord Andros Brax had once made a visit to Riverrun in hopes of marrying his son to one of Hoster Tullis' daughters. House Broom, House Clegane of Clegane's Keep, House Crakehall of Crakehall. Members are regarded as being uncommonly strong and robust, including the Knight Serlal Crakehall called Strongbore, House Estrin of Windhall, House Farman of Fair Isle, House Kenning of Case, House Lefford of the Golden Tooth, House Lorch, House Liddon of the Deep Den, House Marbrand of Ashmark. The current Lord of Ashmark is Daemon Marbrand. His son and heir, Adam, is a childhood friend of Ser Jaime Lannister, a capable commander, and was made commander of the City Watch of King's Landing. House Payne, Ser Island the King's Justice, and Podrick, squire to Tyrion Lannister, are from this house, though Podrick is from a lesser branch. House Reign of Castamere, extinct house that rebelled against Tytos, destroyed by Tywin Lannister and an inspiration for a famous song in Westeros, the Reigns of Castamere. House Prester of Feastfires, House Serret of Silverhill, House Spicer of Castamere. The house is seen as an upstart house. They descend from a spice merchant and a witchwoman famous in Lannisport for her potions. House Swyft of Cornfield, House Tarbeck of Tarbeck Hall, extinct house that rebelled against Tytos, destroyed by Tywin Lannister and an inspiration for a famous song in Westeros, the Reigns of Castamere. House Westerling of the Crag,